Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Los Angeles City Board of Public Works. It is Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, go get vaccinated. I'm going to say that like periodically through this meeting because the only thing potentially more important than your participation in this meeting is you're getting vaccinated. So please make sure you do. We have a short but thick agenda, so we will jump right in. Dr. Campos, do we have a quorum?
Thank you, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. Roll call and establishing quorum for today. We have President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioners Villegas and Caloza. President Good, you do have a quorum. For the record, all commissioners are dialing in remotely. Dr. Davis is dialing in from his City Hall office. I am also dialing in remotely from my City Hall office here in downtown Los Angeles. We're also joined by our General Counsel, Mr. Ted Jordan, who is dialing in remotely as well. Mr. President, you do have a quorum at this time. Currently, we do not have any callers on the line under general public comment. We also do not have any commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. We do have a couple of callers on the line for item number 4, 3 in total. So 3 callers on the line for item number 4. We also have the contractor for item number 5, Mr. Dave Sorum from Bubalo Construction. In addition to that, we did receive 2 commentary that I can read out loud at the time that your board considers the item. Item number 2 from Alexander Brownstein and item number 5 from Mr. Dave Sorum that I can read into the record. And those were received by our Google form. That's an online commentary portal.
Okay. So you said 1 for item 2 and 1 for item 3, you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah, great question. So to recap, item 2, item 4, okay, and item 5.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, we'll do it as we come to those items. Does that sound good?
Great. Thank you.
All right. Fabulous. All right. So let's jump in. Just getting our toes in the water. Let's start with the minutes for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. Do I have a second to my motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any concerns or questions, Garcia, Caloza, or Davis?
None for me.
None.
Great. All right. Hearing no concerns, Dr. Campos, the minutes from Wednesday, April 14, 2021 are adopted and approved forthwith. Now, for some fun stuff, we have a really exciting presentation. The Spark LA program, Girls Academic Leadership Recognition, and the indomitable, brilliant Vice President Auro Garcia is going to take the proverbial gavel and kick us off.
Thank you, President Good. I love that intro. Well, good morning to everyone. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, guests, bureau reps, and to our Spark LA girls. Good, welcome. Welcome to our board meeting. As you have been in person before, we usually have it with a boardroom, and you would be able to come up to the podium and speak. So we've pivoted that, and so we're now on Zoom, as you know. So thank you for that, and thank you, President Good, for allowing me to have this time to make this presentation for the Spark LA team. So let me tell you a little background on who the Spark LA team and why we are here. This is our 6th year doing this presentation. The Spark LA team is a partnership with HNTB, which is a corporation that hires and really does engineering work. And so HCNP is also one of our partners within the city as well. And the City of Los Angeles Department of Public Works. Given that this is our 5th year, last year we missed our presentation. The stay-at-home orders were called exactly when we were getting ready to do a field trip to City Hall. And so, unfortunately, we actually had to cancel the bus. It was that close to coming to City Hall when we actually had to make the decision to cancel the in-person presentation. So we skipped a year. We'll make up for that. I'm sure we will. This is a Los Angeles Unified School District's all-girls secondary school. The Girls Academy Leadership, it's called GALA, Girls Academic Leadership Academy. Spark LA helps support the STEM's curriculum. The STEM curriculum includes science, technology, engineering, and math, which aims to attract more female students to pursue degrees in professions where females traditionally are underrepresented. So the HTMB and created the Sparkle program under the Gala School to really focus on bringing females into the engineering world. And that's what we're celebrating today, that the culmination of this program, they have now had different virtual classes, or I should say sessions, because this is a voluntary program that the girls volunteered to be part of, an after school program. So in addition to their academic education throughout the day, they still stayed after school to learn about engineering, about STEM, and these are the kinds of things that they learned throughout the last 5 sessions. One was rail and planning design. They designed an alignment to connect the Purple Line to the Crenshaw Line. It's exciting to hear that. They also did a bridge design. They learned about bridge engineering and how to build bridges using toothpicks and gumdrops. They also did a tunnel. They learned about tunnel engineering and tunnel boring machines, went on an underground tour of the regional connector and performed calculations on stations. These are our 6th to 10th grade girls doing that. They also learned about aviation and airport and terminal design. They went out to the Van Nuys Airport and learned about design and airport terminal airline. And lastly, they learned about water engineering and sustainability. They learned about watersheds and how to improve their neighborhoods using water engineering and biodiversity. Definitely all the things that we work within Public Works, within our bureaus, and so they're very much aligned with what we're doing. In other words, this is our future workforce, and we're excited to hear that and see that, of all these young girls that are learning engineering and the great projects that they have done. So with that, we have a very special treat today. We're gonna see some of the projects that they built throughout these 5 sessions, and then we're gonna give them a virtual certificate for today, and we'll get to say hi to them, and then basically end the presentation that way. But HTMB engages in various programs and activity to create awareness with young people, to inform them about careers in engineering. So we're very happy, and thank you to Lily from HNTV for making sure, and Laura Moore, who will be presenting in a bit, for making sure that this program stays alive and that this program continues to foster future female engineers and future STEM workforce that hopefully eventually they would be interested in coming to work for the city. It would be, we at the city, we appreciate, we love all of our engineers, and we love wherever they come from and whatever their background is. But of course, born and raised and Angelino natives are always, very much welcome in our city force. So let's make sure that our girls in the Gala school and the Spark program continue this path. I appreciate that. So HTMB, thank you so much for that. And commissioners, I just and personnel and everybody, right before we came to today's board meeting from 9 to 10 a.m., we had a pre-meeting. And we had a really engaging conversation on what leadership is and what it is to work in the city. And I want to thank a couple of folks that participated in this morning's panel. I want to thank our Deputy City Engineer, Julie Sauter from Bureau of Engineering. She shared with us her background and why she loves working in the city. Appreciate that from Julie. We also heard from Isa Jackson, environmental engineer from sanitation, and we heard from her background and what got her interested in engineer and how she's now working as an environmental engineer for sanitation. We also heard from Angela Martinez, our principal construction inspector from the Bureau of Contract Administration. Absolutely 100% beautiful presentation that she did to let us know what an inspector does and how important that job is as well. And lastly, we had presentation from Lisa Murray, from our Chief Financial Officer from Sanitation. And again, she talked about how when she was 18 months, she was already looking at construction projects. So it was a very engaging conversation in the morning. My colleagues, Commissioner Villegas and my colleague, Commissioner Calosa, also joined me in presenting to our all-women Zoom meeting, which was actually pretty cool. And so Commissioner Villegas and Calosa also shared some words of wisdom on leadership and things that we should be looking out for as women and as we move through this work careers in our path. So with that, thank you for giving me this time, and thank you for everyone here. And I'm very proud to be the liaison and making sure that this presentations come to fruition every year. It's an honor to be part of all of you. It's an honor to be able to address young girls at an age that they're still trying to figure out what they like and what are their strengths and weaknesses and so forth. So thank you everybody for that. So with that, I'm passing it over to Ms. Laura Moore from Gala Spark.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for giving us the opportunity to speak here and attend the board meeting. When Aura gave the description, she made it sound like we actually went these places. Well, like everything else, we went virtual this year, and I was a bit nervous about how we would take the students to the airport or in a tunnel. Well, in fact, it worked out really well because we can't go in the tunnel ourselves anyway because we're not safety trained, but we were able to get the tunnel engineer to make videos and give us a virtual field trip. So it turned out really a wonderful experience. We were able to send activity kits to each of the students at their homes because they were all remote at the time. So I'm going to give you an example of the things that we did. In next year, let's be optimistic. Next year, they'll be able to come to the school or come to the meeting themselves and give this presentation. But today, today it'll just be me. So one of the things we did is we had a group from the airports, Van Nuys and Lawa, come and talk about airlines, and the students were asked to make a logo, nominate their CEO. I'm pretty sure they all made themselves CEO of the airline, and design a paint scheme and a name for their airline. As the commissioner mentioned, we talked about bridge building, and we talked about plans because we make plans, and from that paper we do construction. So this is an example of a Warren truss, and then our bridges that we did were out of gumdrops and toothpicks, which is a stand-in for the actual bridges that are under construction in the city of LA. And then one of the last ones that we talked about was presented by the Bureau of Engineering related to water and wildlife and preservation and One Water. And we used Jamboard to collaborate on ways that we could incorporate elements into the design of each person's neighborhood. So those are a couple of things that we did in class, and just want to say thank you to the students, to the school, and to the commissioners for supporting this program. And my colleague Lily Acuna, who is a great organizer in doing this and really much appreciated.
Thank you, Laura. Lily, you want to say a few words?
Sure. I just want to extend my gratitude and thankfulness with the partnership we have with the city and the partnership we have with the school as well. It's been a joy. I've been working on this program for about 3 years, and each year I get more inspired. And the meeting we had too before this board meeting, just super inspirational. And I'm excited for the future. I'm excited. These students, they're smart, and it's just a pleasure working with them and working with the school and working with everyone in this program. So thank you again to everybody.
Thank you, Lily. I look forward to next year's presentation. Let's see what it looks like. So happy about that. I know that we opted for not having the girls come up, but if I do want to recognize them by their name because they really do deserve a individual certificate and an individual time. And so if you feel brave enough, young ladies, to put your video on when I call your name and say hello, that would be great, just to see you guys. Or you can just do it now, and when I say your name, wave, just to make sure that, you know, we see who you are. And I just want to make sure that Dr. Campos is ready. Oh, here he is. Yay. So you see that certificate that Dr. Campos is holding on the Zoom PWB? That's the certificate that you will get in the mail. We have them ready for you and good to go with all of the commissioners' signatures on it. So thank you to all of our young ladies that will be receiving, and congratulations for your culmination of this very intensive program, but well worth program that really links you up to what we are doing in real time. So congratulations for that. I'm really happy. So I'm gonna call out names, so feel free to just wave at us, and then we'll move from there. Ishel Gonzalez. Ishel, do we see you? We do. Wave. Congratulations. Congratulations to Mia Kimura. Congratulations to Bailey Rogoff. Mia, I see you. Wave. Hi. Congratulations to Yasmin Artega. Congratulations to Cyan Park. Do we have Cyan? I think she was in the earlier meeting. Congratulations to Kendall Burnley. Congratulations to Letitia I'm so sorry, I'm gonna probably say this incorrectly, but I'll do my best. Lertubi Chuhat. Congratulations to Charlene Ponce. Congratulations to Smita Sarkar. Oh, Smita. Congratulations to Olive Wong. Congratulations to Sui Chang. Congratulations to Scarlett Shear. Congratulations to Melissa Duran. Congratulations to Elena Arteaga. I thought I had seen her too. Congratulations to Tessa Belperio. Congratulations to Melanie Lopez. And lastly, congratulations to Colette Bernstein. Congratulations to all for all your time and your effort, and I hope you really enjoy learning about STEM and engineering, and we hope that we see you in a couple years. And our really goal and our really big wish is that we hope to see you in our workforce in many, many years to come after this. So thank you all. Thank you to Lisa, to Julie, to Isa, and Lily, and Laura, and everybody else that participated, Angela as well, in today's presentation. Thank you, Sparkle. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you next year. President Good, back to you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. That was awesome. Congratulations to all the students. Congratulations to Spark. Congratulations to HNTB and all the great work. Both critical, intellectual, and academic exercise that also, at least in the realm of bridges, looks quite yummy. So I may have to get me some gummy drops later today after looking at that picture.
I was thinking that we should have gotten samples.
Those were the old school gumdrops too, not that new chewy stuff. So that was great. Thank y'all so much, and congratulations to all the girls. And we look very much forward to doing this in person again next year. So thank y'all. All right, Vice President Garcia, are we ready to go forward? You good?
Yes, sir.
All right, folks, we will go first to item 1 on the agenda. Item 1 are bids. Bids were received at 10 a.m. this morning for a Council District 14 Arroyo Seco pallet shelter project. Work order E1908842. The estimated cost of the project is $4,757,800. And again, this is a pallet shelter project in CD14. I believe that Dr. Campos and Kumi are there to open the bids.
This is correct. They are here.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, President Good, for now the Complex Executive Officer. We will now begin to open up bids for the CD14 Arroyo Seco Pallets Shelter Project in CD14. We received 3 bids in total. Please let me know if I need to raise my voice.
Can you hear him, President Good?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Dr. Davis.
Thank you for the confirmation. The first bid received for this project is from Ford EC Incorporated for a total bid amount of $3,573,694 even. That's $3,573,694 from Ford EC Incorporated. The second bid received for this project is from Access Pacific Incorporated for a total bid amount of $3,387,600 even. That's $3,387,600 from Access Pacific Incorporated. The third and final bid received for this project is from CS Legacy Construction Incorporated for a total bid amount of $4,136,619 even. That's $4,136,619 from CS Legacy Construction Incorporated. For the record, line item number 9 has been lined out. However, it has not been initialed. The line item number 9 unit price is $897,000. That's $342,897, and that is the non-initialed cross-out number. President Good, that concludes the bid openings for today's agenda.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Campos. Do I have a motion to accept these bids?
So move.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any concerns or objections? Garcia or Caloza?
None for me.
Great. All right. Hearing no concerns, those bids are received, and look forward to getting this project going. So, all right. They're received and adopted forthwith. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Kumi, and thank you, Dr. Campos, and thank you, Dr. Davis, for serving as witness. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. Let's jump into item number 2. Item number 2 is in CD13. This is a task order solicitation number EMGD-087 with AECOM Technical Services, Inc., pre-qualified on-call consultants list, environmental documentation services, Hollywood Walk of Fame renovation project, recommending the board authorize the city engineer to issue the TOS to AECOM Technical Services, Inc. from the pre-qualified on-call environmental documentation consultant services list to provide environmental documentation services for the Hollywood Walk of Fame renovation project as stated in TOS number EMGD-087 with a budget authority of $638,935, including contingency. This work order E190844 and C-123099. From the Bureau of Engineering, who will be presenting, Dr. Campos?
Yes, we have Ms. Maria Martin that's going to kick it off, and then she is also joined by Mr. Noor Malhis and Mr. Norman Mundy.
Hi, Ms. Martin.
As you mentioned, we are here to request the issuance of this task order. Noor Malhis will present an overview of the project, and then he will turn it over to me so that I can present an overview of the task order solicitation process.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Hollywood Walk of Fame is a historic cultural monument dating back to 1956 when the City Council approved the addition of the stars on Hollywood Boulevard to honor individuals in the entertainment industry. The Hollywood Walk of Fame is a major destination for visitors to the Hollywood area, and it's a location of more than 2,600 bronze and terrazzo star plaques embedded in the lining of the sidewalks in Hollywood Boulevard and Vine Street. The terrazzo elements have endured enormous wear and tear since the first ceremony, and preservation and maintenance efforts have been temporary and ad hoc. This project plans to do a big undertaking to the Hollywood Walk of Fame project. It's proposing renovations to the project area to the entire extent of Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is comprised of Hollywood Boulevard from Gower Street to La Brea Avenue, which is 1.3 miles, and then Vine Street from Yucca Street to Sunset Boulevard, which is about 0.4 miles. And the project involves repairs and streetscape improvements to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, including repair and replacement as necessary of damaged star plaques, expanding the sidewalk around 10 feet or less, depending on the space available, to pedestrians as well as for necessary infrastructure, and constructing streetscape improvements that would implement a cohesive streetscape and landscaping design. And this would including mobility lanes, class 4 bike lane with bollards, landscaping, bioretention. It includes street amenities and street furniture, as well as raised intersections and traffic improvements to increase safety and accessibility for all, and simplify access and parking, and improve circulation, and provide alternative mobility options. The construction cost for this project is estimated to be $93 million and requires approximately 2 to 2.5 years to complete. Right now, we finished schematic design, and we're still looking and exploring options of how we're going to proceed with actual design of the project, since it's such a large scope and a large cost, and there is a shortfall. So we're looking at perhaps making a pilot project, and we're still looking at the logistics as well as a funding and project implementation plan for this effort. So I can now pass it over to Maria Martin, who will describe the environmental process and the task order solicitation for the environmental work.
The project requires evaluation under both the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. Environmental documentation is needed for project approval. The basic scope for the task order solicitation is the preparation of an environmental impact report and required technical studies, as well as the NEPA documentation, which is yet to be determined based on the actual federal funding that is awarded or obtained. The task order solicitation was circulated to the firms on our pre-qualified on-call consultant list for environmental documentation services. 2 proposals were received and evaluated. The proposal from ACOM Technical Service Incorporated, known as ACOM, was selected as being responsive and providing the best value to the city. We are requesting authorization to award the task, as President Good mentioned, for $532,446 plus contingency for a total authorization of $638,935. Funding for this particular task is from the Economic and Workforce Development Department, Community Redevelopment Agency of Los Angeles Excess Non-Housing Bond Proceeds, known as EBP. The general fund will not be impacted. The total cost of the task may actually be less than the base task amount if the scope of the environmental impact report can be narrowed to be focused on several key areas. And that occurs as we move forward with the environmental review process, because it is a discovery process. The BOE will evaluate this opportunity as the task proceeds. ACOM has pledged a minority business enterprise participation level of 14.6% and a women business enterprise participation level of 0.7%. The women business enterprise participation pledge is below the city's anticipated participation level of 2%, but ACOM may be able to increase this participation level of the work, which is for cultural resources evaluation, if more effort is required in this area. And that would be determined, again, as we move forward, and the determination of the actual documentation needed for NEPA is determined. This is a very specialized project, as you know, and Norman Mundy, and I are here and available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Maria, very much. And thank you, Norman, and thank you, Nur. Let's open this up for conversation. Let's start with Commissioner Villegas. Any questions or concerns?
President Good, sorry for the interruption. This is Fernando Campos, Executive Officer.
We have a speaker.
Like to.
Yeah.
We do not have a speaker. We actually have a Google comment.
That's right, the Google comment. That's right. Yes, Dr. Campos. With my apologies, Commissioner Villegas, let's hear the Google comment, and then Commissioner Villegas, you can kick us off.
Great. The commentary received on item number 2 from Alexander Brownstein. He is against the item. The comment reads as follows. This appeal should be granted. This location for a shelter will be extremely detrimental to tourism, local families, and successful commerce by local businesses. Please grant this appeal, or I will donate to the opposing candidate of any council member whose votes against the appeal being granted. End quote.
Wait, this was I'm sorry.
I think that's a comment on the, this is Ted Jordan. I think this was a comment from the item. Yeah, we had
It
recently.
reads as if it's the CDP appeal.
Yeah,
That was heard by this board several weeks ago.
Right. To be clear, colleagues and the public, there's no appeal at play here with item number 2.
This is simply an untimely comment.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, whoever sent it in. We appreciate it. With that, Commissioner Villegas, any questions? And you can kick off our conversation.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I don't have any comments. These types of projects are needed just for like upgrades and maintenance. So I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Villegas. Commissioner or Vice President Garcia. Uh-oh. We'll start with, how about President Pro Tem Davis while Vice President Garcia figures out her mute. Something's keeping you on mute.
Sorry, it was. I couldn't find my button. I apologize for that. I was still going through the report. I guess my biggest question, and I have to say thank you for this project, because not only will it bring back some tourists, but it's a much needed project in revitalization for that area. I do believe that. But I see that it's $93 million. Am I right about that?
That is correct. That's the estimated construction cost at this phase of the project.
Can you tell me why? I see that we're gonna fix the streets, the stars, some of the things. Can you just tell me what's the biggest cost?
Well, the biggest cost is
pushing it to $93 million.
Right, it's expanding the sidewalk about 10 feet. It's including all this, the street trees, the furniture, the utility relocations, all the different paving materials. It just cost, that's how much these items cost per the large square footage. It's really just a volume issue with the amount of distance that we have, or the limits of the project.
So how long is the stretch that we will be fixing?
It's about 1.3 miles from La Brea to Gower, and it's expanding the sidewalks on both sides of the street, including class 4 bike lanes, and also doing some utility relocation of various utilities.
Okay.
As well as raising the intersections, putting traffic improvements, as well as I mentioned the amenities, street furniture. And from Vine Street, it's about 0.4 miles from Yucca to Sunset. So 1.7 miles in total.
Okay. I can see how that is happening. During this time, will any businesses be impacted?
No, not that. We're trying to limit the impact. We're working with CD13 to work with them, much prior to construction, to work on limiting the impact as much as possible.
Okay, that's important, especially now that so many of our small businesses have gone through so much. I just want to make sure that we're conscious about that as well. Even though we're revitalizing the area, still during the construction phase, it's important to keep them functioning and operating all the time.
Yeah, we agree, and the council office is also agreeable on that.
Okay, I really support that part of it. That's all for me right now, President Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis, hi.
All right, that's a tongue twister, huh? I wanted to just be updated on a couple of things. I see that this is an improvement project, and you told us it's from La Brea to Gower. And the timeline that we anticipated will take to start the project and, of course, to finish it will be about how long do we anticipate?
If we had to start right now, let's hypothetically, if we had all the funding to start design development into construction documents at this time, it would take approximately 2 to 2.5 years to this point to get into construction. So that's anticipated construction start date in this scenario will be 2000 and about end of 2023.
So we are still exploring for the funding to do this.
Yes, we're still exploring for the funding, and we're looking at doing it more than likely in segments. So we have, instead of doing the full 1.7 miles, we'll maybe just do a stretch from Wilcox to Gower as phase one, and then Wilcox to La Brea as the other phase, and then all of Vine Street. That's what we're looking at.
Do we have any federal dollars to date on this particular project?
No, we do not. It's all state and local funding. We don't have any federal.
So do we anticipate exploring various avenues of funding past what we currently have, or is our vision just to see what we can get in terms of local and state funding?
We're looking at all the different funding options. We applied for ATP Cycle 5, and unfortunately we didn't get it. We're looking at other types of applications that we could use. We're trying to put a funding implementation plan together, which gives the scope of the project, weighing against the type of funds we could apply for and the dates we could apply for, and putting it like in a very organized manner to make sure that we hit our scheduled submission dates, and we know the frequencies of what those applications are, as well as the maximum amount historically they would be able to give us.
Do we often look at independent funds, meaning that those that are perhaps grants that don't necessarily come directly from the state, or maybe not necessarily from the city, but that there are other interest groups who want improvement in projects and infrastructure projects to whom we can go to compete for or to propose an investment in a project like this?
Yeah, we were looking at the infrastructure financing district to help us finance this project, but that's why I think we're pushing more towards maintenance, having that funding more towards maintenance. But what you mentioned about looking at other interest groups, we are exploring those too. It's a big undertaking. We're exploring all our options with the council office to see what could be possibilities for implementing the type of funding. And also, certain funding sources will pay for certain elements of this project. And we're trying to maybe having a plan of piecing those together in the right increments to make sure that we execute this, correctly.
And I would say that Los Angeles in general and Hollywood in particular, both are national destinations that people aspire to engage and come to visit, so that I wouldn't rule out going past our particular reach to see. And of course, we have a congressperson for the area, and he or she has to come and drive down that street at some point. So that's something worthy of looking at. What I wanted to finally ask you is that certainly from La Brea to Wilcox is an area that once we improve it, certainly will have public value, again, because we are a national destination. When you chose this particular stretch first, why did we choose this stretch as opposed to perhaps a stretch further east of this particular project? Where are we in terms of the improvement of the area, and how did we arrive at this? Is this perhaps a part of a larger plan that we have in mind in terms of infrastructure improvements?
Well, I think with the Hollywood Walk of Fame, it only extends from La Brea to Gower. And then that segment which you're talking about, the Wilcox to, or I believe you said Wilcox to La Brea, that part. We only looked at that as part of just a phasing approach. In terms of the overall grand scheme, the actual Hollywood Walk of Fame does only end at those limits. So we're trying to do the entire point of it. But in terms of the larger context, we're trying to work with DOT, since we're putting in bike lanes in the area, our class 4 bike lanes, as well as with those improvements. We're trying to look at them to maybe expand, to look at a mobility plan to connect, to make more bike lanes, to have kind of regional connection within that area.
Great. Well, I think
global network of transportation. That's what we're trying to look at. But in regards to actual physical hardscape improvements, it's only the currently existing Hollywood Walk of Fame is only on Hollywood from La Brea to Gower.
Great. So thank you for the report, and I agree that obviously it is going to be of public value to improve the area, and I'm sure that Hollywood Walk of Fame is pleased that we are paying attention to what's going on, and we care very much about the legacy of what they have done, because it certainly has international impact, certainly our entertainment community, and there are some other pieces to this that are important in terms of economics and business, because we also have many other opportunities in terms of bringing back the film industry and all of those things. And this is indirectly related to the work that we hope to do economically. So I thank you for this report. I understand what you're doing, and I appreciate your explanation in terms of what your vision is for the area. Thank you.
I thank you guys.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis and Nur. Yeah, and just to add, I mean, the council member, Mitchell Farrell, Mike, has been really a force of nature on this. I mean, this is one of the opening salvos in a very big and quite impressive and visionary plan for Hollywood Boulevard. And so and I'm very confident they're going to be with BOE and everyone else lifting every conceivable rock that might have dollars and cents underneath to make this happen. So it's a great example of sort of the entrepreneurial spirit that can be applied from a council office, and you couple that with vision and a department that's ready to rock and roll, or a bureau that's ready to rock and roll, then we're going to see something pretty great, I think. So, yeah, so thank you for those very good questions. I think Commissioner Villegas, is your computer back on? Are you with us?
I'm here. I'm having trouble with my camera. Don't worry about me. I'm listening.
Okay, no problem. So Commissioner Closa, would you like to jump in with us?
Yeah, thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions for Mr. Mahis and the entire BOE team here. I echo the sentiments that you just shared. This project is very much driven by Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell and his entire team, specifically also Dan Halden, who's their director for the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and they have an entire master plan that they've been working on. It's been, I believe, an iterative process, but they've done tons of community outreach, tons of stakeholder engagement. Even during the pandemic, they doubled down and had lots of opportunities for people to engage on this project, because they know and understand what a big deal it is to really revitalize this area. And so I thank them for their leadership and hard work on that. And really, this piece before us today is really critical, because it's the additional support that we need in our city family and within BOE to help with these environmental documents. We know Ms. Martin and Mr. Mundy have been hard at work. I know they've lost so much staff because of the SIP, the Separation Incentive Program. And so this item is critical to moving forward, so that we don't have any delays in the project, knowing that there's so much environmental work that they're doing, not just for BOE and for Public Works, but really citywide. And so this additional support is going to be really critical to moving this project forward. So I look forward to seeing this next phase, and it's going to be a really important investment for our city. So thanks to BOE and the council office for all their hard work on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Closa. I would just, I'm really glad you said that. Dan Halden has just been, again, a force to be reckoned with on behalf of Councilmember O'Farrell. And I think he's doing like a community briefing per day at this point. It's impressive. So I don't know if Dan's with us, but they're doing great work, and this is exciting. So thanks, BOE. Colleagues, or can have I asked everyone? Has everyone had an opportunity to weigh in on this? great.
I
Commissioner
wanted to add one thing. I'm sorry. Yes, I want to echo that. Dan Halden is amazing. Dan Halden is absolutely amazing.
He really is.
And a council member himself.
And always with fine, good spirit. Just
Yes.
always does this very hard work with great spirit, like you, Nur. So I'm going to invite a motion from Commissioner Colosa on this one.
Sure, happy to move.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Davis beat you to it. Any concerns or
None.
additional questions? All right. Hearing none, the item is adopted forthwith. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Nur.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Norman. And y'all have great days, okay?
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, terrific. Colleagues, what I'd like to do, Lance, I'm sorry, I know you just jumped on, but I'd actually like to flip the script a bit and move to item 4, and then we'll go back to 3. So let's jump on to item 4, ladies and gentlemen. I know I'm going to read in the item, Dr. Campos, and then I know we have a couple of speakers and I think one written comment, and so let's handle. Let's hear from everybody. We'll start with let's start, Dr. Campos, with the written, and then because there was one submitted on the Google form, right?
Not for item.
Sorry, that's right. That's for item
5.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 and 5 on Google form.
You'll make sure I remember. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to read in the item, and then we'll hear from public comment. And just for good measure, after I read it in, Dr. Campos, maybe you can remind everybody of who all is with us as folks have questions. So item 4 is in Council District 4. This is a tree removal request for 3775 Barham Boulevard, recommending the board, get ready, 1, find under the California Public Resources Code, Section 21166, and the State Environmental Quality Act, CEQA Guidelines, Section 15162, on the basis of substantial evidence contained in the whole record that since the city's prior certification of environmental impact report number ENV-2007-0254-EIR, there have been no changes to the project, changes with respect to the circumstances under which the project is being undertaken, or no new information of substantial importance concerning the project which cause new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant efforts, and therefore no subsequent EIR, supplemental EIR, or other analysis is required for the project. 2, specify that the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. And 3, review and approve the request for a fee permit to remove 9 protected trees and shrubs, which include 1 coast live oak tree, 4 California black walnut trees, 3 Mexican elderberry shrubs, and 1 Toyon shrub. Tree and shrub replacements are required. So with that, Dr. Campos, for everyone's edification, why don't you go through who all is here on the item, then we'll hear the comments, then we'll go into the item, or to Mr. Benuelos's presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. We have the presenter from the Bureau of Street Services, Mr. Hector Benuelos, also joining us on the line from NBCU, who is part of the applicant. Ms. Joy Forbes is on the line. Also, Sarah Walsh from Leon and Walsh is on the line for item number 4. In addition to that, we have 3 callers on the line. Ms. Joanne D'Antonio, Ms. Diane Nicole, and Shelley Bellick on the line for public commentary. And for clarification, we did not receive any Google comment form.
Thank you. And I believe is Ms. Mallarich with us also?
Absolutely. My apologies to Ms. Mallarich. Our city forest officer is on the line as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right. With that, let's hear public comment from Ms. Billick and company.
Great. We'll start with our first caller on the line, Ms. D'Antonio, caller ending in 631. If you can please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak on item number 4.
Hi, this is Joanne D'Antonio from the Community Forest Advisory Committee. Only excerpts of a very lengthy EIR that's available online for this mega project were submitted with this tree removal request transmittals. The EIR covers a project that is over 400 acres and more than 500 tree removals, and it was done before Toyon and Elderberry were added to the protected tree ordinance. Why is this piecemeal tree removal request going before you? Is it allowable to break up projects to facilitate getting through permitting? How can Board of Public Works make a determination on mitigation? We don't see building alternatives that could work around the trees. At this time, Adele Hashkalil is asking for the city to budget an environmental planner with both tree knowledge and an architecture background to look at how valuable trees and woodlands such as these can best be preserved. Once you take these out, they don't come back. At best, the nursery stock replacements give some ecosystem services in 10 to 15 years. The street tree inventory has only 828 coast live oak trees and the third of the city inventoried so far. Yet these trees that are no longer planted on streets, we are told by the professional inventory that they give back over $127,000 in ecosystem services in 1 year. These native trees are rare. Your children, if they stay in Los Angeles, will be in the city where wildlife will die out, and it will be affecting their health and their children's health. It is our responsibility to the future to understand the science and then preserve what we can and at least mitigate what we are not preserving. This piecemeal approach does neither. How many visits from NBC Universal will you be allowing so they can piece together the pieces of their mega puzzle? Slightly off topic, I want to also point out that you had the opportunity to ask about street trees on the Walk of Fame. Is my time up?
Yes, 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I just wondered why you didn't ask about the existing ficus trees on the previous item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio, as always.
We'll move on to the next caller, Ms. Nicole, caller ending in 688. If you can please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone. You have 2 minutes to speak on number 4. Please go ahead. Hi, Diane. Can you hear us?
Apologies. Hello, Commissioners. I'm representing Urban Woodland Watch and Sunshine Hill Residents Association today. We are opposed to this tree removal project as proposed for 2 main reasons. First, we believe that the city has a legal duty under CEQA and the certified EIR to mitigate for the impacts to biological resources, and that requires, at minimum, tree replacements for the 36 sycamore trees that have allegedly been planted as part of a planting program. The mere fact that the trees in question were allegedly planted as part of a planting program and therefore do not qualify as protected trees under the city's protected tree ordinance doesn't mean that they do not qualify as a biological resource under CEQA. The EIR clearly contemplated mitigation for these sycamore trees, and now the applicant is using a loophole to change the mitigation in the EIR. That makes it, clear that the sycamore trees were required to be mitigated. If you choose not to mitigate the sycamores now, you're making a substantial change, we believe, in circumstances that warrants additional environmental analysis. Second, implementation of the protected tree ordinance as proposed by our city will not be in compliance with mitigation measures 1.1 and 1.4 in the EIR in terms of range of plant sizes for the mitigation walnuts, cultural practices for the mitigation walnuts, relocation for the walnuts as an option, monitoring construction protection fencing, and following the oak tree removal regulations of the proposed county-specific plan. Again, if you choose not to mitigate the sycamores now, and you choose not to follow the mitigations as stated in the EIR, We believe you're making a substantial change in the circumstances that warrants additional environmental analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the last caller on the line, Ms. Bellick. If you can please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone. You have 2 minutes to speak on this item. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Shelley Billick, and I'm the chair of CFAC, Community Forest Advisory Committee. And I'm here to comment on the public process or the weakness of the public process for this project. And what I mean is we got a notification about this removal in March that said that the project was related to Lawa people mover. And although it seemed strange to have a people mover in Universal City, we knew that we had already talked to the applicants and there wasn't much we could do. Then we got another notification in April correcting the project, saying it's NBC Universal. I went by the site this past weekend on my way to a hike and looked through the fencing and saw sycamores and went, I don't remember seeing sycamores on the removal notice. And then looked at the transmittals that were made available just this past Friday and saw that the original EIR and reports talked about 36 sycamores being removed and considering them protected. Then we see the DUDEC report that was just prepared last month, or in March, excuse me, saying that because they were planted, and we don't know if they were planted as mitigation trees for trees that were removed for the child care center, we don't know, that they don't qualify as protected. However, if you look at Schedule C in the DUDEC report, those sycamores are 20, 30, 40, 50 feet tall. Those are 30-plus-year-old trees with extremely high valuable ecosystem services, wildlife services, and even if they get through the loophole in the protected tree ordinance, they have extreme environmental benefit. So I don't think that we have been given enough time. The council office knows that we're opposed, and it's not an appropriate public process.
Thank you, Ms. Bellick. President Good, that clears the commentary for item number 4.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming in and providing that public commentary. We appreciate it. Now let's move over to Mr. Benuelos. Hector Benuelos, good morning, sir.
Morning, President Good.
Commissioners. Look forward to your report.
Yes, okay, yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Hector Benuelos. I'm with the Streets LA Urban Forestry Division. What we have before us is a request to remove 9 protected trees at 3775 Barham Boulevard in Council District 4. This is a project site that's off of Barham, kind of hidden a little, kind of tucked away a bit, but it's a project site, large one, about 37 acres in total area. And NBC Universal are proposing to construct up to 9 new sound studios of approximately 18,000 square feet each. The project includes the demolition of an existing employee daycare center and parking lot. And in order to construct the new studios, the applicant will be required to perform grading and demolition of the current infrastructure there on this property. And with that, there are approximately 64 native trees on the property, of which 9 protected trees and shrubs will need to be removed in order to accommodate construction of the new sound studios. There are those 9 protected trees and shrubs consisting of 1 coast live oak, 4 Southern California black walnuts, you have 3 Mexican elderberry shrubs, and 1 toyon shrub. If approved, the applicant will be required to replant those trees with a minimum of 4 to 1, what includes 36 replacement trees and shrubs. I also want to make note that there are 36 California sycamore trees on the property. These trees were brought up in discussion with the applicant a while back, and they did provide some plans, landscape plans that identified where the trees were at, and we had our urban forestry staff go out there and verify the location of those trees. And in fact, they were located very close, or if not where the identified on the plans that were drawn up back in 1993. So we have. It is our understanding that the trees were, in fact, planted as part of a tree planting program, and therefore, pursuant to the municipal code for protected trees, that the trees do not qualify or meet the criteria, qualify as native protected trees. However, the applicant is making, did indicate that they were going to replant at least 2 to 1 of these native trees, the sycamores, that are on the property as part of their tree planting plan. The urban forestry is satisfied with that. For this project here, and with the tree replacements, and they have been working well with our division, and they provide all the requested documents and plans that are needed in order for us to pursue this request before your board. So we're asking that the board approve the request for the removal of 9 trees so that the NBC studios can proceed with their project. The Council District 4 and the Community Forestry Advisory Committee and Department of Neighborhood Empowerment were informed of the tree removal permit request. To date, we have not received any information from the council office, either in support or opposed to the project. That concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions the board and or public may have.
Thank you, Mr. Benuelos. I know that Ms. Forbes and Ms. Walsh and Mr. Allen are with us. Would anyone from the applicant's position like to just say a few words about the application and really the planting plan, or anything that would be helpful to us?
Go ahead, Joy. Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission, and commissioners of the board. So I wanted to address a couple of the comments that came up from our public speakers who are very well versed in the process. This was part of a very large EIR. That is absolutely correct. And it's taking a holistic approach to review of our property, the almost 4 acres, over the course of a multi-year, multi-phase development program. So this is exactly what CEQA calls for, in fact. So it avoids piecemealing by studying the whole of the project and different alternatives to that project, which were also studied, and that there would be tree removals, including protected tree removals. While it is true that at the time that this EIR was completed, the Toyon and the elderberry were not identified as protected in the EIR. They were identified in the EIR as to be removed. So it was part of the disclosure to the very many and very lengthy public process that NBC Universal went through at that time. And there was also a statement about more about the EIR and specifically about the sycamores. And I agree with almost all of what that speaker said with regard to CEQA, except there was a comment about a specific mitigation measure, which is applicable in the county only, and of course this is city property. But in general, I agree that our EIR studied removal of those sycamores, even though they weren't considered protected under the city ordinance. Our EIR considered a removal of those and asked that those also be replaced at a 2-to-1 requirement, which is why it's not part of your permit application because it's not considered protected, but it's absolutely part of our obligation to replace it at a 2-to-1, and that's what we are doing. And then I think I hit most of the comments that were made. We are doing a 5-year bond on all of the replacement trees, including the sycamores. Those will be, it won't be a part of your bond requirement, but we are ensuring that those are maintained over the years. And we have Ryan Allen, our arborist and consultant from DUDEC, who can answer any more technical questions about the trees that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes, very much. Mr. Allen, why don't you, if you don't mind, I think that was sufficient for now. I'd like my colleagues, I'd like to have a conversation among the board, and would love for you all to be ready for questions. And as a reminder, again, everybody, Rachel Malrich is with us today as well. So to start, why don't we, Dr. Davis, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so I think that this project has certainly engaged in outreach to some degree when you began to propose it and deal with city staff. And so I wanted to know, in BC, you were able to participate in those sessions as well? The outreach projects?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the feedback that we have received, or that you received rather, is similar to what we just heard about some opposition to it, believing that we are not saving all the trees that we possibly can. Is that what you understand, the concerns from some of the folks?
Actually, Mr. Banuelos informed us that things like that might come up. But we spoke with our local neighborhood council president and vice president about the project, about the removal of trees, including the 36 sycamore trees. We talked to them about those as well, and they expressed no concern and are supportive of our continuing with growth of our production into our backlot area.
Okay. I wanted to ask Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, you're the arborist on the project, is that correct?
Yes.
I don't know the detail to which I heard some constituents raise an issue, as it is often done, about every project we do, can we save as many trees as we possibly can? Do you believe, with your review of the work, that we probably saved as much as we possibly can on this particular project?
Considering the grading impacts, I would say yes. The most significant collection of trees on the site are a native black walnut woodland that is just on the other side of the grading impacts that will be protected. So Mr. Banuelos referenced 64 total trees in the project and 55 of those being protected and preserved through the project. And the vast majority of those are the large collection of native black walnuts that will be preserved through the project.
Okay, wonderful. How many again are those going to be again? You said 50?
There's 55 total trees in that area.
Oh, that's great. Could you tell me, anyone who's worked on the project, what is the overall project going to be? It's going to be an apartment complex? What is it?
No, it will be our original project years ago. We contemplated housing, but that was not supported by the council member of the district at the time, nor the board supervisor of our section of our property at the time. But this project involves expansion of our production facilities. Specifically, we're allowing up to 9 sound stages to be built in this area.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what do you think the time period would be for the project, your anticipated time to complete the project?
We expect it to happen in phases, but we would like the bulk of the sound stages, up to 8 of them, completed next year.
Okay. Wonderful. That's it for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. Good morning. I have just a couple of questions. and this can be to the applicant, that's fine. Remind me, how many acres will you be now obtaining or working on?
Yeah, to fit those 9 sound stages in, we need about 37 acres.
And out of the 37 acres, we are going to, you're asking to remove 9 trees in total.
That's correct.
Okay. And are those 9 trees it? Is that it? You know, is there projection for more, or will this be the only ask to remove trees?
So for this project, this 37 acres, only 9 protected trees are we asking for removal. Of course, as even the commenters mentioned, it's an almost 400-acre property. So I may very well come back to you in a couple of years on another area of the property mentioning trees on that section. So I don't want to say the word never, but that is it for this project.
And when that, if and when that happens, that NBC will utilize other 8 parts of your property, you would have to go through the same process again, right?
That's right. I would come back to you. That's right.
Okay. And I also want to reiterate what my colleague said, Commissioner Davis, about always wanting to protect as many and preserve as many trees as we can. And I hope our arborist, your arborist, not ours, but yours, Ryan, you know, I perceive that you've seen it through those lenses, right? When you made your decision and your design, that was the lens you used. Was it?
Yeah, I didn't design the project, but it's for the gradient impacts. But yes, I mean, looking at where the impacts lie, like I said, the most significant trees or collection of trees is that walnut woodland that is will be preserved. There may be the possibility to maybe potentially relocate the coast live oak tree that's on the property, but beyond that, the other species are either in not a good health condition or structural condition where they would make good candidates to be relocated on the property.
Okay. Actually, I had that on my notes about the health of the trees, but I don't know if Hector, can you attest to that? What is the health of the trees, of the 9 trees that we're asking to be removed?
They're in fair condition.
Okay. And my last question, in your new design or your addition to what you're going to do at NBC, will you also, I know you'll be adding what we require for protected trees, the 4:1, but will you be adding any more, natural open space type of vegetation so that to contribute to what, what we're trying to do as a city to continue to have trees and our natural habitat? Will you guys be doing more of that as well?
Yes, we are. We're adding back in those sycamores at a 2-to-1, and we're making them part of our entry statement into that side of the lot. We're also doing some western redbud trees, and then all of the landscaping on the hillside will be native shrubs under those replacement trees that are planted on the hillside. So yeah, we're trying to bring in more native or at least drought tolerant shrubs underneath the trees that we're pulling back in.
Thank you. And I guess my very last question, just so that I can have a bird's eye view of this, and Hector might be able to answer this, by removing the protected trees that are currently there, will we be eliminating any shade to residents? I think that's a Hector question.
If you want me to grab that one, Hector.
Okay, whoever.
Yeah, that'll be for the applicant.
Sure. No, there are no residents in this area. We are staying hundreds of feet away from residents that are off lot from us. And so, yes, the tree removal is not near any residential places.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you so much, President Good, for my time.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Calosa, questions or thoughts?
Thank you, President Good. Thank you, as always, to everyone who for input, and thanks for today. I just had a few follow-up. Appreciate the questions that Mike asked, and so I'm not going to ask anything more that's been talked about already, but I did want to understand a little bit more too about the benefits that you're bringing to your employees and what exactly it is you're building in this space. Can you speak a little bit more about what that is and what benefits you're providing to your employees?
Sure. Our job is entertainment. So on 392 acres, that's what we try to provide. Some of course is provided at our theme park, which is open again, and the bulk of it is in our lower lot or our back lot area, which is where production is held. You may have seen some articles in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times, talking about how soundstage space is at a premium and highly desired. And so with 8 sound stages, for example, we can do 4 television shows. Each television show employs about 300 people. And these are good, high-paying union jobs. So that's what we're able to do is put that many more productions in the back lot right here in the heart of LA.
And it sounds like you're trying to do that very quickly. I know that's one of our goals at the city is to bring people back to work knowing how, how stressed and strained the entire entertainment industry has been this past year. So I know it's going to be a critical piece as hopefully more people get back to filming in Los Angeles, which is also one of our goals here. And can you elaborate a little bit? So one of the items I heard you mention earlier, did you mention there would be a childcare facility for your employees that's going to be in the footprint or where some of these removals are taking place?
Yes. Well, when you talk about projects, it's a good thing we have a multi-year, multi-phase master plan because these things take time. So there was a childcare on the property, but a couple of years ago, we already built a new one that can handle almost twice as many employees' children on the property as this former child care facility could hold. So we built that a couple of years ago, preparing for potential use of this site. And so now we're able to remove this old building because it hasn't been used as a child care for a couple of years now.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for elaborating on that piece. And I know this is critical to your operations, and I appreciate the readout from Mr. Allen on the DUDEC report about your effort to save as many trees as possible. And for those of us who have been to Universal Studios and in that area, I think we see that it's still, much of the scenery has been kept and a lot of the natural landscaping. I don't think I have any more questions from my end since my colleagues asked a lot of the questions already. And I guess the only thing I want to see if Ms. Malerich, I know, did you want to add anything to this item since we have the pleasure of having you here this morning?
I don't have anything specific. Again, Hector's really done a great job of looking at the project, and the project team, I think, has described, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions. President Good, would you like me to add a piece about the what we've heard from the county on protected trees?
I was going to ask you to anyway, so yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that now. Thank you, Commissioner. So one of the items with this case, and obviously it's always sad to see trees removed, we have these additional sycamores that Hector did the additional work with his staff to verify that they were part of a planting program, those landscape plans, et cetera. I just want to add that as we've been looking at the protected trees ordinance as a whole, considering how we might strengthen and improve it in a number of different fashions, we have done outreach and research on how other cities do tree protection. We utilized a Tetra Tech consultant team to do a comparative cities analysis, and part of their research, they spoke with LA County, who has an oak tree ordinance. And their oak tree ordinance covers both naturally occurring oaks and planted oaks, which is different from our protected tree ordinance that is only naturally occurring plants that are protected. What we heard from LA County staff was that they actually think that our ordinance functions very well in that capacity. They've actually seen a decline in people taking oak trees when they do distributions. They have a harder time distributing native oak trees at tree distributions because there's a hesitance to plant because of the ordinance. And again, while we recognize that these trees also have an environmental value and we love when projects include sycamores, I think that we're going to continue, and obviously we can continue the conversation as we look at the further revision of the protected tree ordinance. That initial feedback has been that that's a positive thing to have in our ordinance in order to encourage folks to continue to plant those native species.
Thank you, Ms. Mallarch. Go ahead, Jessica, sorry.
Oh, no. Thank you, Ms. Mallard. Alan, when you mentioned earlier about some of the coast live oaks being relocated, do you know how many and when you'll know whether or not relocation is possible?
There is one coast live oak that is listed for removal right now, and that's the only one tree that has a potential to be relocated. There are site conditions that would need to be looked at to determine if it's feasible to get the equipment up to the site to relocate the tree, because it's on a sloped area, which might make it difficult for the cranes and digging equipment to get out there to do the work. But that is something that we can look into and get an answer back on the feasibility of that and when that could take place.
Okay, and that one that you could potentially relocate as part of the 9 tree removals before us?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. I mean, I think that's something I would definitely recommend if that's a possibility to go from 9 to 8. I know it's just one, but since you said there's a possibility that it could be saved. But I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you, President Good.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. Commissioner Villegas.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I appreciate all the work that's been had for this project. We realize that it's important to the city's fabric. And as you can tell, we have to deal with, balancing, real life jobs and balancing our native environment in this board. So it just makes it sometimes just a little challenging, but that's the arduous process that we were asked to do as commissioners. And so we appreciate as much information as possible. I just wanted to point out for the record, it is 9 protected trees, but it's also an additional 36 trees that will also be removed. And that's why we have the opposition from the folks from CFAC. But what I did want to ask was from Hector or Mr. Banuelos, we have before us the 9 that are protected trees. If you can at least elaborate or let us know how many additional trees at least were we able to save before you came to the 9 trees and how that decision was made.
There are 64 trees on site. I believe Ryan made a comment on that as well, of which 9 are very close within the footprint of the building, and also be impacted by the required grading. So they cannot be saved. They're going to have to be destroyed, unfortunately. But 55 trees are being retained on the property. Which I believe there was a comment on the relocation of the coast live oak. That one's in a pretty tough area. I don't know if they're going to be successful in relocating it. Even when oaks are relocated, they're impacted, and it does affect the tree, the oaks, and their long-term survivability. Right. So and it does count as a removal as well. We do consider those as removals. However, if they can keep a native tree and relocate a native tree, I'm all for it. Right. So we analyze all these projects coming forth our way to the extent possible to ensure that all measures are taken to preserve trees in place. But again, on this project here, I don't see any alternatives available to keep the trees in order to construct the project as planned.
Thank you for that context. And I don't want to belabor this anymore, but I would just have just a few questions just for the representatives from NBC Universal. For the additional 36 trees that are going to be removed, and that's where the child care facility was in the parking lot. Can you at least explain in the event that this goes through, what kind of a commitment you have? It's just worth explaining again to being able to at least cultivate or have an enhancement of additional trees. You're not required on this, but any responsibility that you feel you may have to at least continue to have trees throughout the campus.
Yes, we will be this project site. We looked at many sites on our lot. You say 392 acres and you think we have a lot of options, right? But we are very limited. And so we wish we could have structured this project differently to not even remove the 9 protected trees or the 36 sycamores. But for the 36 sycamores, we are going to replace them at a 2-to-1 ratio. So 72 new sycamores will be replanted. And we're not tucking them off to the side. We are putting them as part of the entry scheme into this side of the lot, the barn side of the lot, and basically surrounding the base camp area of these new production facilities. So we hope by doing that, people get to enjoy them and see them in all their beauty throughout the seasons. Believe it or not, we have seasons, and the sycamores show us that. So that's what we're able to do there, and we're being very mindful of any shrubs or other plants that go under them or near them are native or drought tolerant. That makes sense for giving it kind of that old Hollywood ranch feel.
Wonderful, thank you. Just wanted to provide that context for all of us decision makers so that we just have a little bit more information and more autonomy. I have no more questions, President Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Ms. Forbes, what could you just? I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm an old man. Could you repeat the OS field? Is that where, in terms of the plan for replacement sycamores?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
I just missed that last part that you said about. I think it was the replacement on the sycamores about where you're planning to do it and the Old West field, which as a Texan, I want to hear about.
Right. So we're replacing the sycamores at a 2-to-1 ratio. So 72 new sycamores will come in, and they'll be part of the entry experience and surrounding the base camp area of these new production facilities. And so our landscape architect gave us some inspirational photos of sort of those old ranches that you see in Thousand Oaks and frankly what used to be here back in the day. So the shrubs that we're planting underneath these sycamores and on the hillside by the live oaks and the black walnuts will be either natives or at least drought tolerant, and so they'll fit with that sort of that scheme of that old Hollywood ranch feel.
Gotcha. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate that. Well, first, I want to thank our callers, Ms. Nicole, Ms. D'Antonio, Ms. Billick, who are always engaged and always make very important points as we go through a deliberative process. I want to thank everyone who's here from representing NBC Universal. I think you have a particularly skilled arborist, I might add, who had the opportunity to work with in the past, and very much appreciate how he goes about his work. And then I want to thank Mr. Benuelos and my colleagues and Ms. Mallarich for the sort of level of deliberation on this. I do have a few observations and maybe a couple of questions with it. I mean, I want to before that, let me just let's all stipulate to this. And maybe not everyone agrees completely, but I fundamentally believe that trees are superheroes. I think we all drop a little tear or maybe a big tear every time a healthy tree or even moderately healthy tree is taken down. If we don't, we should, and we're missing the boat. I think it's important to always note that, and it's important to note from a policy perspective, from a deliberative process or perspective, et cetera, that we expect and demand, quite frankly, to the degree that we have the authority, that applicants and Streets LA work extremely hard to avoid tree removals to the greatest degree possible, and to protect trees to the greatest degree possible, with a particular focus on the protected trees that are protected by, codified as protected trees in the LA Municipal Code. So I think, at least on behalf of my colleagues, we can stipulate to those principles, and we will continue with that. With that as context, I think there's there's value in sort of replaying some of the math, and please disabuse me if I'm off on some of this. Mr. Benuelos, I mean, ultimately, we're looking at there's 64 protected trees on the site, and 9 of those are potentially being removed, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So there was and is intentional effort. We flipped the glass to save 55 protected trees in the context of this project.
Yes, 55 trees. We're trying to save even more than that, but unfortunately we weren't able to.
Now, among those, we have, I find it interesting, we have Toyon and elderberry, only very recently identified or designated as protected, very recently. But Mr. Benuelos, and forgive me if you've said this, but despite that, they would not have necessarily been grandfathered into being covered by the protected tree ordinance, given that this plan was initiated prior to them being added to the ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes, that is my interpretation.
But NBC Universal, of their own accord, incorporated that into their planning and are treating the Toyon and elderberry, and I believe this is the first case we've seen of Toyon and elderberry, are incorporating them not into their replacement plan at the more limited scope, but in their replacement plan for protected, i.e. 4-to-1 replacement.
Yes, that's correct.
And that is of their own accord. We have no authority to require that under the law.
With the Toyon and the elderberry, I believe we do. I can defer to Ted Jordan. He can confirm that.
I just I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging. I appreciate the spirit of including that, including those, even though there's potentially an arguable point as to whether or not those would have been grandfathered in or not. Then we have the 36 Sycamore. So these were part of a planting plan in 1993. Is that correct, Ms. Forbes? Yeah.
Yes, right on that time.
Yeah. I will share in the spirit of transparency, you know, in conversations with Ms. Mallarich and Mr. Benuelos around this, I also had heard, I mean, my intuitive sense was, and frankly, you know, I don't actually doubt what, at this point, I don't really doubt NBC Universal's commitment to replacement plans. My intuitive response to that policy of not treating planting planned, forgive my butchering of language, trees as part of an obligatory protected tree replacement framework, I thought that seems crazy, but it was really made to seem uncrazy when Ms. Mallarich explained the rationale, which I have to say, you know, makes a lot of sense for what it's worth, at least from my perspective, because it is hard to fathom anybody planting protected trees if they are going to, you know, what council would recommend that they would do so if they lose that kind of, if they lose that flexibility. I mean, for good or bad, I think that's very interesting. And still, despite the fact that those 36 Sycamore are not subject, and I am persuaded that that is the case, NBC Universal is going to replace it 2-1, create sort of a Dallas Cowboy home entrance to the thing, right? I also want to note, I mean, and I appreciate Commissioner Coloso's line of questioning on this. I mean, I'm sure, I mean, we're all busy. If anyone missed it today, there's actually a new set of sound stages that are planned for a new set of sound stages being initiated in another part of the city. As folks know, that the Office of Film and Television Production is also a part of the Board of Public Works, and this is something that I spend a good amount of time on, and a significant challenge to a significant economic engine in the city of Los Angeles is basic space. In case anyone hasn't noticed, we have a density challenge. We need more density, by the way, but that's my own personal editorializing. But we do, and I know that for the last several years, by and large, despite the fact that we have made Herculean efforts as a city, as a region, as a state to maintain production in the state, to maintain and incent in production in the city of Los Angeles, a particular challenge is soundstage space. And by and large, I know that we're at about 95 to 96% capacity at all times, non-pandemic times, obviously a key qualifier, on sound stages. That is a very, very large challenge from an economic standpoint, and I think that's an important note. Mr. Benuelos, the applicant in any tree situation is required to provide a 3-year bond, correct?
Yes, they are. However, the applicant is supplying a 5-year bond on this particular permit request.
Also of their own accord?
I believe so.
Okay. And I think that pretty much covers it. I would go back again to the fact that the removal of any trees, particularly protected trees, is a painful process and painful to contemplate. But I am convinced that there's a balancing act that has been carried out here. There has been approximately how many public hearings, Ms. Forbes, since this project was initiated? have there probably been on this project?
Well, it was 4 years from the time the draft EIR was released to public approval. So yeah, many.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jordan, anything you would like to add, just for good measure?
No, I've read through the report of the transmittals and concur in the recommendations in the report.
Thank you. So I do. I'm convinced that no one on this Zoom, sorry that it's a Zoom, is interested in taking down trees for lightly or brazenly. And I am convinced that there's been a substantive effort to mitigate the impacts of the tree losses here. And I fully get and appreciate the concerns of the community or the folks who have called in. But I do think that this is a situation where, painful as it may be, that we should allow this removal process to go forward. And so I will introduce a motion to move the item forward. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any last concerns or epiphanies? Davis, Garcia, or Calosa? Okay. Hearing none. You good, Davis?
Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. This is supported, right?
Well, we'll just you know what? Let's just we'll
deliberate.
We'll actually call a vote. I'm motioning to approve the item. I've got a second from Commissioner Villegas. Dr. Campos, you want to call roll?
Absolutely. President Good?
Aye.
Vice President Garcia?
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis?
Yeah, I support it. And I just want to say that I think that in this economic challenge that we have, to have some plans that have been thought about and concentrated on is critically important to the economy and critically important to Los Angeles for us to have this kind of operation in our region. And certainly we know all of what we do in work with construction, we have to pay close attention to trees and we have to protect trees. And at the same time, I just wanted to say how important this project is going to be for our economy, and I give my aye vote.
Confirmation, that's an aye. Commissioner Villegas?
Aye.
And Commissioner Calosa?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimous.
And with the unanimity, we will move it forward forthwith. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Appreciate your time and your patience.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues. I'm going to increase my popularity with all of you by calling a 5-minute recess. Sorry, Al. Sorry, Nasser. I know y'all are up. Lance, I know, is waiting. We'll make it 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 12:04 p.m. Good morning, and I'll see you in the afternoon. Okay.
The Board of Public Works will now take a recess for 5 minutes. They will reconvene at approximately 12:04. For you, those of you that are going to remain on the line, the council audio lines are still open. General public lines are still open. I will start the recording for you. Give me about 30 seconds. Okay, we are now confirmed record mode. President Good, would you like me to call roll call?
Yes, sir. Please do. Thank you, Dr. Campos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer with the Board of Public Works, reestablishing quorum. It is 12:07. Clock is changed. We have President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioners Villegas and Caloza. President Good, you do have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Okay, folks, let's jump right in. Let's go to item 3. We're back to item 3. Item 3 is for all council districts. This is a contract negotiation and revised task order for solicitation TOS number 29, Sidewalk and Transit Amenities Program. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the Bureau of Street Services to negotiate contract terms for staff with the top 2 proposers based on requests for proposals, reviews, and selection recommended by the staff proposal evaluation committee toward developing a recommended award and negotiated contract and program for the council's consideration. And 2, authorize the city engineer to issue second revision for TOS number 29 to Parsons, increasing the budget authority from $423,690 to $473,690 for development of detailed project description of the staff and initiation of visual and land use consistency analysis to support the California Environmental Quality Act documentation preparation. This is work order M00155553 and C-129661. I believe Lance Oishi is with us, and Al Bazzi also. And Nasser, Streets LA always rolls deep. Lance, you there?
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry, my camera doesn't seem to be working right now, but hopefully you can hear my voice.
Oh, I see it, or I see your name. Yes, we got you.
Okay,
be loud and proud, Lance.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting us to be able to discuss our matter before the board this afternoon, I guess. I was going to say morning. We started a journey to secure a successor contractor for our sidewalk and transit amenities program, or STAP, as we call it, last November when we issued a RFP. And, we are working towards a deadline of December 31st of this year to have a successor contract in place so that we don't have a lapse of service for our transit patrons out there in the streets primarily. And so we started down that journey, and in February we received 4 proposals, and we started moving forward with the evaluation of the proposals. So our first request this morning is actually for the authority to start negotiating with the top 2 proposers when we complete our evaluation process. And it's kind of an oversight on our part, because when we asked the board to issue and release the RFP back in November, we failed to include that language that says request to release the RFP and negotiate the contract. And so what we're asking for right now, to keep our schedule on track here and hopefully have a contract, before the board this fall for consideration, we are asking for the ability to negotiate right now before we complete our evaluation process, so that upon the completion of the evaluations, we can enter into negotiations immediately without any further delay. So that's number 1. And our second request actually is also relates to this overall deadline. And it's really related to CEQA and our desire to have our CEQA documentation completed in conjunction with the negotiated contract. And we actually started discussing the CEQA process with our colleagues in the Bureau of Engineering last summer, almost 10 months ago. But at that time, when we started that conversation, we were in the midst of COVID, and we really didn't have any funding in place to get that process started. And we were not able to identify funding to do this CEQA work until earlier this spring. And so once we started that conversation, we started strategizing with the Bureau of Engineering on how we might be able to accelerate that process, again, to have the CEQA documentation completed in conjunction with our contract negotiations. And we kind of hit upon the idea of possibly doing a 2-phased approach, where we would start some of the studies immediately, or as soon as we could right now. And then once the Bureau of Engineering was able to secure make a selection on the CEQA contractor, consultant that could do the CEQA, full-blown CEQA report, have those studies that we started earlier, add on to the CEQA documentation that was being prepared for the overall analysis. And so we had a an existing amendment, an existing TOS open with Parsons Engineering, who has been helping us through this staff proposal process, RP process. And by issuing them an amendment, this amendment, we are able to start the visual analysis and land use analysis, as well as the overall project description right now, immediately, versus having to wait several more weeks. And again, that time frame would help us to ensure our contract is negotiated on time and again, before the board later this fall. And then once the Bureau of Engineering at a later date was able to, again, issue a TOS to a consultant to complete the CEQA studies, we provide the studies that we've done right now, combine them with the work being done under the Bureau of Engineering TOS, and then again, that would complete our CEQA analysis for staff. So that's what we're asking for this morning, is the ability to amend our TOS with Parsons to start that visual analysis and the land use analysis, and also project description process that would contribute towards that CEQA process. And it's actually timely for us too as well, because during our community outreach process, we've heard from various community members about the concerns about the visual impacts of some of the displays, as well as the compatibility with land uses. And so getting started on these studies now also help us to address those concerns. The other thing that's beneficial as well is that we are able to basically add those studies. I just lost my train of thought, but add those studies to what we're doing right now in advance, again, of the actual CEQA studies to get things completed earlier. I just remembered what I was going to say. The other thing about doing things right now, as opposed to if we had started last summer, 10 months ago, as I stated, is at least at this point, we also have a better idea of what the actual proposers are including in the program. And so we have a better idea of quantities and types of project elements that would need to be considered. And those will all actually help to better define the CEQA study that will be done. And again, contribute to the completion of that analysis by this fall. So with that, I conclude my report. I am available for questions if you have any. I had my colleague Audrey here earlier that was with me, but she had to jump off to another meeting, so I apologize for that.
Thanks, Lance. Though we miss Audrey, we're very confident in you handling your blank screen notwithstanding. So let's open up the floor. Vice President Garcia, you have any questions?
Sorry about that. It's when I have the agenda open at the same time that makes me lose my mute button. I do not have any questions. I was briefed on this by Lance, and I asked a ton of questions during my briefing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis?
Yeah, Lance, can you tell me about the timeline of the proposed project?
Sure. So again, we started the RFP process in November of 2020. We received our proposals from the industry in February of this year, and we started an evaluation process of those proposals, in March. We're continuing with the evaluation process right now, and it's gotten a little bit more complicated than we anticipated because we've asked the proposers to provide us with several different scenarios. So instead of actually evaluating just 4 proposals from 4 different teams, we're actually evaluating a dozen different proposals, and we're trying to assess them on an equal basis so that we can see apples to apples what one proposer is doing compared to another. We anticipate to complete that evaluation process within the next couple of weeks, and then go into what we call a short list. We're going to shortlist to the top 2 proposers, ask them to do a demonstration project and provide us with the best and final offer probably by mid-June. And upon assessment of the best and final offer and the completion of that demonstration process, immediately enter into negotiations. We wish to have the contract negotiation completed by the end of the summer, just prior to the September, if we can do that, so that when we come back, basically to the school year, I'm kind of relating it to that, but in September, when we kind of get back into the fall season, we were able to come back to both the board and the city council with a recommendation to execute a contract. And by having a contract that is signed, hopefully, in October, if not November, we provide a little bit of overlap so that the new contractor can kind of get started with the new program, so that when our existing contract terminates on December 31st, there will be no disruption to our constituents out there. They will notice no difference as far as the services that we go, and we just continue to expand the program from there. And so our goal, again, is to get the contract signed this fall and to have the new program started up in January of 2022.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the update, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Colosa?
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions for Mr. Lishi and the Streets LA team. They also did a great job of reaching out ahead of time and briefing me, and just really want to take this time to recognize all their efforts in a very condensed timeline to get this across the finish line. And this is going to be a really important toss to making sure that we try to capture as many days as possible so that we're not butting up against the deadline here at the end of the year. But also want to commend you all on the challenge that you took on when we last saw you at board, which is to do more community outreach. And you did just that. I feel like every week I'm seeing your team out on virtual Zoom meetings, doing tons of outreach, letting the community know about the benefit that this is going to bring. And so thank you for all your hard work on that. And also thank you as well to BOE for your support on the environmental side.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. Commissioner Villegas?
Oh, I almost got a promotion. I don't have any questions either. I have been following this program, obviously, through Streets LA very closely and participated in some of their meetings with them. So I'm very familiar with the actions that are before us and what we're trying to do. So I just, commend our Bureau for being a little bit comprehensive and reaching out to community and just bringing them up to date. I appreciate all the work that they've been doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Villegas. So thank you, Lance, and everybody. I agreed. I mean, I think it's smart to get this. It's smart to do the short list on the negotiations, given our timing. And just for clarity, for our colleagues in the public, I know that the TOS 29 is for a particular piece of the environmental process, and then BOE will be bringing a subsequent TOS for the overall EIR, correct, Lance?
That's correct. So TOS 29 was actually to retain a consultant that would help us analyze the out-of-home industry market and develop a new STAP program. And Bureau of Engineering is working on, I believe, TOS 93 at this point, which is to actually retain a consultant that would do the CEQA studies.
Right, and I wanted to make sure everyone's clear on that so we're not surprised, because I believe that's actually coming to us even Friday, maybe, or soon. So thank you for that, Lance. And I know that will be also looking at the impacts of potential digital displays as well, right?
That's correct.
Which was a significant source of concern for the community. So I'm glad to hear that that's actually that's very much going to be a part of that. So. All right, thank you. I also would just note that the mayor's office has been really helpful in their leadership on this as well, and that's been very important. So I don't have any other questions. You guys are literally in a sprint and a marathon on this, Mr. Oichi, and to do the requisite due diligence and really deep dive on on all of the elements while navigating the sprint and marathon is no small task. And this is a gargantuan enterprise. And so thank you for the excellent report. And I will entertain a motion to move the item forward. Commissioner Villegas? All right, I'll take Commissioner Villegas' motion to move the item forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
We got President Pro Tem Davis and Colosa. Great enthusiasm on the item. 1 second. I love you both. Sorry. Sorry, that was not for the record. Although it can be, actually.
You love Colosa and Davis.
I do love Colosa and Davis. Y'all caught me. There we go. And any concerns, Vice President Garcia? Okay. All right. With that, no concerns or objections. The item is adopted forthwith. Thank you all very much. Thanks, Lance. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. And Alan, Nasser, thank you all. I don't know. Were y'all here for that?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Tell Audrey thank you, and y'all get to work. All right. Let's go to item number 5, folks. Item number 5 was from a project in CD15. It's a contract acceptance. San Pedro, 3rd Street relief storm drains. I know I would get in trouble there quick. Recommending the board, 1, accept this contract. 2, assess Mike Bubalo Construction Company, Inc. with a penalty in the amount of of $3,000. Mr. Bubalo, I believe, is on the line and probably did not like what he heard there for a second. Excuse me, Mr. Bubalo. A penalty in the amount of $3,000 for the unauthorized subcontractor substitution of one bid-listed SBE EBE contractor. And 3, instruct the Director of the Office of Accounting to disencumber the recommended city penalty in the amount of $3,000 from the project fund. This is work order SZS 11466. And who's with us on this item today?
Miss Sophie Zhang from.
I think Mark. I think Mark Gutierrez is leading this. Yeah, are you doing the presentation, Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes, I am, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. Why don't you kick it off?
And we do have Mr. Dave Sorum on the line from Bubalo.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Let's hear the presentation from Mr. Gutierrez, and then Mr. Sorum, we will. I would love to hear from you as well. Okay, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
The recommendation is to assess Mike Bubalo Construction, MBC, with a penalty in the amount of $3,000 for the unauthorized subcontractor substitution of one bid-listed SBE EB subcontractor. MBC listed 5 subcontractors in their bid. The penalty recommendation relates to subcontractor Barney's Hole Digging Service, Inc. Barney was bid listed to perform drilling work totaling $30,000. OCC verified that Barney did not perform any work on the project, $0. The bid proposal requirements state it is considered a substitution if anyone other than the bid listed subcontractor, including the contractor, performs any portion of work designated to be performed by said subcontractor, or if the contractor reduces the dollar amount of any subcontractor without written approval of the inspector. Failure to obtain approval for any subcontractor substitution may result in a penalty of 10% of the subcontract amount. Therefore, MBC may be assessed a penalty of $3,000. It should also be noted that if the contractor had not bid listed Barney, they would not have met the board's MSM requirement, mandatory subcontracting minimum requirement of 10% on this project. OCC notified MBC of the potential penalty. MBC responded stating that Barney was listed to provide drilling services for the installation of a solid wall beam and plate shoring system as specified in the bid documents. Upon further investigation of existing soil conditions, it was determined that alternative methods of shoring via timber rail shoring system were appropriate. OCC contacted BOE regarding the contractor's response, and BOE clarified that the bid documents did not call for a specific shoring method, stating what kind of shoring system to be used during construction will be the contractor's means and methods. They submitted timber multi-shores for approval and use in the field. Since OCC staff did not locate any approval from the inspector to reduce Barney's amount, Staff recommends that a penalty of $3,000 be assessed. This concludes my report. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Mr. Sorum, welcome, and I believe you'd like to speak on behalf of Mike Bubalo Construction.
Good afternoon, board and staff. My name is Dave Sorum. I'm one of the owners of Mike Bubalo Construction. I'd like to briefly describe the project and the reason why we didn't use Barney's hole drilling. We installed roughly 600 feet of 48-inch HDPE pipe. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make
yes,
sure.
Sir, we got you.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyway, the contour of 3rd Street between Grand and Pacific is like a bellwether curve. It starts out around 10 feet, then goes up to 23 feet, and then back down again to about 8 feet. Anytime we get over 20 feet, we always look at beam and plate. And when we say beam and plate, what you do is you have a drill rig out there and you drill a 24-inch diameter hole. You place usually a 12-inch beam. And in this particular case, we probably have about 30 or 35-foot long beam. It would only be for that deeper reach between 15 and 23 feet. And, you know, if you're ever down in a hole where they're installing a conduit and you look back up and it's hard to see daylight, they get a little concerned. And safety is always our major concern. I think our mod rating is 0.65 or 0.7, and 1 is excellent. So when we went out to the job site, we brought Barney's hole drilling out there. And we were looking at the alignment, and it's 6 feet off center line, and then you'd have to go a little bit farther than that. And with a drill rig, you have to drill down with an auger. You pull it back up and spin it in reverse and dump the dirt. When you do that, that is always moving back and forth. And where we could do that is right along the curb line and near the parkway. We looked at it, we'd have to go to get a tree cutting permit, and then also the power lines are right there. So we knew it wouldn't work. So we started our excavation. We found out that the soil, what was recommended for the soil parameters from the city was somewhere in the range of 400 pounds per square foot cohesion, which lists as a type C, which is the most unstable. And when we got out there, we realized that that boring that they used to determine the soil parameters was not exactly true. It was more stable. It would be like a type B. And we did our determination of that and excavated. It was standing up. So we told Barnes, I don't think we're going to need you. We won't have to get a tree cutting permit. There's no safety issue with the power lines or anything like that. So we proceeded on through. And if you remember this project, I think we're roughly around 4.65% below the board approval or the award amount, and 13.32 below the budget amount. And with the way we did the project, there's less impact to the neighborhood. You don't have 35-foot long beams, and you don't have 8x20 steel plates swinging around. I mean, we went right through there, and we did it the safest way possible and less impact to the neighborhood. So I respectfully request that this $3,000 be given back to the contractor or to us. I don't think it's warranted at all. It's a safety issue, not only for the power lines, but also for the impact of the neighborhood. I mean, it's a big thing to go out there and drill a hole down 35 feet, slide in a beam, put in the plates. The way we did it was a lot safer for everyone. And I'm here to take any comments or questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Sorum. Let's open this up for conversation. We'll start with Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. I'm sorry if I missed this very important piece to this conversation, but at the beginning, when the subcontractor or subconsultant, is it a subcontractor or subconsultant? Let me reread this.
Subcontractor.
Yes. When they were, when you made the negotiations for this, were they aware of what their scope of work would be, and were they also qualified to do that type of work?
Barney's hole drilling has been in business since well, I've been associated with them since after I left the LA County Public Works, since 1992. And they've been in business longer than that. They're one of the premier drilling companies for this type of work. In fact, I used them on a $20 million infiltration project in Long Beach to put in down drains. There is no problem with that. And the $30,000 amount for them, they knew that it was limited work between 15 and 23-foot depth. So, yeah, they're very well qualified.
But they didn't do the work, right? Is that?
No, they did not do the work.
And I guess this is the part I did not capture. Why didn't they do the work?
They didn't do the work because what would happen is that when you bring a drill rig out there, if you can imagine a truck bed with a big auger on it, 24-inch diameter, and what you have to do is drill down, and then you fill up the veins of that auger. You pull it back up, and you bring it back out, and you swing it, and then you reverse spin it to get the dirt off the auger. And it's hard to explain unless I could show you pictures. But anyway, they do that, and what you have is you have a mass. It's called a Kelly bar. That sticks up in the air, and probably anywhere from 20 to 30 feet. It's tubes inside of tubes to get down, and brings it back up and spins. And so there's a lot of mechanical moving of that. And what they were concerned about is the trees. We'd have to trim the trees along the parkway, and then also the power lines over there. You with that type of I think they're probably about 12 kV lines, Anton. I have my assistant here. 12 kV power lines. You have to stay at least a minimum 10 feet away, per Edison. And so they were concerned about that, and then the trees. So we didn't want to slow down the project or have a safety issue. So what we did instead was use Z-shore struts and timbers, and you can just slide them in the hole. It's kind of like a heavy-duty aluminum speed short. I know I'm saying stuff that a lot of you probably haven't seen or can't visualize, but basically it's a hydraulic jack with boards on it, and it kicks up against the sides and hold it. And the reason that we wanted to use Barney's on this one is because the soil parameters was a C, and you go from a descending order from an A to a C as far as stability, and rock is above an A, if you had solid rock. And C is the worst type of soil you can have. But when we went out there, the soil was standing up where we could use or utilize Z-shore struts and timbers instead of putting a solid sheet of steel plate and beams on each side of it. Hopefully that describes what.
Not really. So what I gathered from what you just said is that the subcontractor didn't do it because they didn't feel safe doing it?
Right. There's power lines next to the alignment, and then we would also have to obtain a tree permit from the city to trim the trees so they could swing the drill rig back and forth.
Okay, so was this work completed? Was this work ever done? Yes? I mean, I'm seeing nods, yes.
Yes, yeah. The work was completed roughly 3 years ago. We had no claims. But
it was not by your subcontractor, right?
No, we dug it ourselves and installed the shoring ourselves also.
Okay. So in short, your subcontractor did not complete the work because they did not feel safe doing this type of work.
They did not feel safe. They do this type of work all the time, but because of the constraints of the power lines and the trees that we'd have to get a tree cutting or trimming permit from the city, they didn't feel safe with the power lines. Not so much with the trees, but it would have taken time to get the tree trimming permit.
So they declined to do the work?
Correct.
Okay. But the work was still done by your company?
Yes, it was, yeah. Yeah, but we did not install beam and plate. We used a different type of shoring system that was adequate and safe. We had no injuries on this job, no claims.
Okay.
And we had less impact to the neighborhood by doing what we did.
And at that time, did you notify your lead, our department, about the change of scope that you would be, not the change of scope because that was still done, but the change of who was going to do that work?
Yes, we informed the inspector that we were going to go ahead and use Z-shore struts and timbers, which was accepted.
Okay, do we have somebody from BCA on this here? Or that we're?
Mark Gutierrez. Mark Gutierrez.
Oh, Mark Gutierrez, where are you? I don't see you on camera. Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. Were we notified of this change at that time?
So I reached out to engineering, and engineering stated to me that they approved the use of the multi-shore, the different type of shoring than what was bid listed. However, they bid listed a different method of performing the shoring, and the process for that would be to request substitution through BCA inspection. But we listed the sub to perform this work. There's a change in how we want to do it. Can we substitute with ourselves, the prime contractor? And that did not occur.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
That's it for now. Thank you, President Good.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis.
Okay. Mr. Sorum.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, sir? I wanted to ask you.
Doing good.
All right. So the issue here is that you asked the city to make a change, and you were told that your change was authorized. Is that correct?
Not that it was authorized, but we informed the inspector out there. When you bid a job, you don't tell the city or any other agency. And believe me, I used to work for LA County Public Works, and I can't remember how many hundreds of millions of dollars of jobs I've designed for them, and I've also designed them for the city of LA with the bond issue.
Sure.
I can tell you about Adams Drain 9208 or 5234, a bunch of other ones that I did for the city.
Yes,
but
sir.
anyway, you don't, when you submit your bid, you don't say, well, I am going to solid sheet this particular reach. You don't. It's done after the fact. You have it in your mind when you put your bid together, of course, what you can and can't do. But as you go out there, when you start excavating, it's like a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get. And so when we were out there, we found out that existing soil was a lot more stable than what was put in their special provision. They had cohesion of 400 PSF, which gave it a type C for the California Code of Regulations. But in actuality, it stood up better. And remember, when you have 600 feet of alignment that you're going to do some type of excavation, and you have one little 8-inch hole that you're relying on for your soil parameters, things can vary. And
Were you aware that they wanted you to notify them of any structural change in the job assignment? You were aware of that?
No, I was not. We're always about safety.
Right.
Always about safety.
So you were not aware that every time you change anything, it has to be also reflected in writing. So if I make any structural change in terms of any subcontractor, I simply have to also write that up so that Con administration will also be aware that in fact a change occurred. But you weren't aware that that's what has to happen. Is that correct?
Not at that particular time. We informed the inspector that we were going to change the shoring, not change the shoring, but we wanted to go ahead and do the more prudent way of doing it and not have anything to do with coming in close proximity to the poly lines or anything like that. And like I said, when you're out there and you're swinging a 35-foot beam and a 20-foot plate in the air, you weigh somewhere in the range of 6,000 pounds and trying to slide that in.
So
what we did.
I'm trying to understand how you got confused. You got confused because when you talked to the inspector, then he said it was okay for you to make the change. But what happened was that there was no one who had a discussion with you about the documentation that also needed to have taken place. Is that correct? Is that what the problem is?
You're correct.
Okay.
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay. So now we understand what the problem is, and I guess we can discuss what that entails at this point. I mean, I know that you know now that every change that you make has to be also equally documented of that change as well. And I do understand you had a verbal conversation with the inspector, and I am thinking that when that happened, what did you think at that point? After you had completed your conversation with the inspector, he said it was okay. What did you think of that?
Well, at that particular time, there was no discussion about it. I mean, we completed this contract on the last time we've had any personnel on the job was when we were doing a punch list on, I think, March of 2018, and the contract completion was May of 2018. That means everything was completed. And then we get a staff report.
Your conversation with the inspector, and when he said that it was okay for you to have the change that you discussed with him, what was your thinking after finishing that conversation at that time? He said, yes, you can change it. What were you thinking? Yeah. What were you thinking
at that time? At that time, it was an agreement with everybody to do the shoring that was most prudent and economical and safe. And
so did you think that you had to do anything at that time? Did you think that that was it? Or what did you?
That was it.
That was it. So after having spoken with the inspector, in your mind, you felt that you had completed the task of what you needed to do.
Exactly. And we didn't realize any of that until about a year later, April 25th of 2019, when we had the staff report that was sent to us after the contract was complete.
I see. So I guess it's a lesson learned here.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing with me your perspective of what account occurred. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Coloso?
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Gutierrez, and thanks for being with us today, Mr. Sorum. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience in working with the city. You mentioned that you're a seasoned contractor and this is not your first rodeo. Can you talk a little bit about how long you've been contracting with the city of Los Angeles?
I believe that we did a project back in early 2000s, and then we kind of, not avoided, but we had other work that we could go to. And then we started bidding again. I'm fairly close friends with staff of your engineering department. And I've worked with some of your staff before when I was at the county. So there was probably a gap of around 10 years. We did this one, and then also Machado, a water line was designed by Department of Water and Power, but DCA was contract administrator. And so, it's been about a 10-year gap.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And those are some big projects that you just named off, and I'm glad that our team has been helpful to you and you know them very well. And so it sounds like to me you're very familiar with what our subcontracting rules and requirements are. Is that correct?
For the most part, we are. And, we're on the ESR list, and we're also on stormwater repair list.
Great. Thank you for disclosing that. And I would hope so. I know that and those are requirements that your firm signs off on as understanding that that's one of the things that you have to comply with. And so I do just want to, make clear to what's before us. I know you talked a lot about the means and methods, but that's really not what the penalty is for. The penalty is not around the means and method, but the lack of notification, official notification on not utilizing the subcontractor. The amount that you listed them for, which I believe from what Mr. Gutierrez said would not have met our minimum subcontracting requirements had they been listed as zero, and you ended up not unfortunately utilizing them for the reasons that you stated. And so I don't think for me, I have too many more questions on this. I will say to my colleagues that I do support the Bureau's recommendation, and that really we have here in place is, we can only actually, find a minimum, or I should say a maximum of 10% of the amount, but really $30,000 was the amount of work that a subcontractor didn't receive for this work. And so $3,000 penalty, in my opinion, is fair due to the lack of notification, and knowing that, of course, Mr. Sorum and his firm have been great partners to the city, and really we appreciate the work that they've done for us and will continue to do for us, I'm sure, as it relates to other projects. But in this case, I'm clear that staff has made to what we expect of the city. And so that'll conclude my remarks, President Good, but I do agree with the Bureau's recommendation.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm
No.
the project manager.
Excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Clozo. Respectfully, everyone, this is a public works board hearing. This is not a free for all. Does someone have a question? Okay, Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. Appreciate the Bureau's presentation and just my other commissioners' questions as well. It just gives context for the decision that is before us. And I just wanted to ask just for, and I'm probably asking the same question as some of my other fellow commissioners, but if Mr. Sorum can clarify, and if Mr. Gutierrez from our city family, if you can both clarify when the conversation was had about the change in subcontractor, that would be helpful.
Hello, this is Dave again. Dave Sorum. Anyway, it was done out in the field with the inspector, who was there on a daily basis and actually running between another job we had with you at that time, Machado. And I can't remember the exact date. This project was completed, in 2018, May of 2018, roughly 3 years ago. And I can't give you an exact date.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay. And Mr. Gutierrez, you have it noted also that the inspector that was out in the field, that they talked to the BPW construction team.
So unfortunately, I'm in the office. I'm not in the field, so
I know that, but you have it noted. Okay, let me rephrase my question. Do you have it noted in the record for this project, and I'm sorry for interrupting, that there was a conversation that was had?
Unfortunately, no, I don't have that. I just checked with inspection, who lets me know whether the substitution was approved or not, and they notified me there was no substitution approval.
So you don't know if a conversation was...
No, I can verify that a conversation was had. But it could have been had, but there's no written or formal documentation of it occurring.
Are these types of conversations, when such a big change is going to be made, are those documented by you all?
If there was a change that was made that was correctly made in regards to a subcontractor, then yes, it would be documented.
And then and then you said a key word right now that was correctly documented. So that is not done by a conversation in the field. That is done through a mechanism that we already have in place. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's the contractor's responsibility to notify the city in writing of any change, not verbally. And so, as I mentioned way back, they had 5 subcontractors listed on the project. They were all approved, meaning that they went through that proper process of requesting written approval to use them. That same process needed to have been followed for the substitution, and that written process was not followed.
Okay, thank you. And then last question, and it's for Mr. Dave Sorum. And you mentioned, you already answered this question, but I would like just a little bit of more clarification. In terms of the process in which your company used to do the project, as opposed to the process that was going to be done by your subcontractor, did you talk to your subcontractor and possibly suggest your method of safety to do the project?
Yes, I did. And it's a completely separate method. There's no drilling or anything like that with the Z-shore struts and timbers. And if you look at the approval of any type of shoring, because I used to check it for LA County, you have to have a reach. What I mean by reach is that you give the stationing of your conduit, and that was approved by the city. So there might not have been anything written stating that, we're not going to use a beam and plate, but we're going to use Z-shore struts and timbers. And if you look on that shoring drawing, because I prepare all of ours, I've been doing it for over 30 years. I used to work in the structural analysis group of LA County Flood Control, which later is Public Works. You have to put the reach that you're going to use that particular shoring. And that was submitted through the county, or through the city, and they approved it. And I'd like to introduce Anton Burkic, who was our project engineer / manager on this project. He has a few more clarification points for you. Go ahead, Anton.
Hello, my name is Anton, and on this job I was doing the project management. And your concerns about communications, I wanted to inform you that this was one of the first jobs that was performed under the E2020 system. And they had a mixture of communications and procedures. Some of it was done through E2020, some of it was done through email, some of it was done from the field verbally. But there was no set pace or direction on where the paperwork had to go until I had to do it. So it was kind of like a teething system because we didn't use all of the E2020 system, and that may have been part of the confusion, and then that could have contributed to the miscommunication, being one of the first ones to use the E2020.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Gutierrez, when was the E22 system started?
I apologize, I'm not sure. I think engineering might be able to answer that one. I don't know if anyone's here from engineering.
I mean, I guess I can share. I mean, the E2020 system is just moving all of our documentation online, especially because, there's so much paperwork for each of these projects. That said, I appreciate the point being made by the contractor in being one of our first testers, if you will, with this project. But I think it's also been made clear through testimony that access is not the issue here in terms of getting information to the city about what the requirements are, and letting us know when you do perform subcontractor utilization like this. I think it's been made clear that you have and work with closely many people from the Bureau of Engineering and many other people from the city. So if you wanted to notify us, you had many means to do that, not just through the E2020 system.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. I feel like we just need a little bit more information on this, and I don't know if we have everybody here to be able to answer questions, unless Mr. Jordan, you want to say anything that would help this case.
Well, no. There's no disputing the basic underlying issue of a bid listed subcontractor was not utilized, and therefore, under the city's code in the contract, that authorizes the board to issue a penalty of up to 10%. The board is not required to impose that penalty. That's in the board's discretion, nor if the board wants to impose a penalty, must it impose this penalty. This is the cap, up to. In prior instances, the board has not always accepted the recommendation from the Bureau of Contract Administration. I'm not saying what you should do here. This is a board, but it's not always the case when a penalty is recommended that the penalty is imposed, nor is it always the case when the penalty is recommended that the penalty of that amount is imposed. The Bureau, and they'll correct me here if I'm wrong, it's the Bureau's practice to recommend a penalty and recommend the penalty of up to the maximum amount, thereby putting the discretion into the board's hands as to whether to carry out that penalty and what the amount. The Bureau is not going to come to you, typically speaking, and recommend a penalty of anything other than the maximum amount, because that's what the code says. It could be up to that amount. But the decision as to whether to impose a penalty or not and what the amount should be up to the cap, that's for the board to decide. I mean, my views outside of that are not particularly pertinent.
Thank you. I have no further questions, President Good, but I'm going to abstain.
President Good, I have a point of clarification. She was asking for evidence. I would ask the question, if field inspectors have field notes in terms of their work, and if in fact they do, on those notes, would it have been documented of the conversation to confirm that the conversation took place?
Yeah, the other issue here, the other issue that I have is that there was a decision made, and a decision was made over the actual process in which to use the subcontractor, and it's about the shoring and then using the beams and then using the depth. So my concern here is if the subcontractor couldn't do that work, somebody made a decision, sounds like Bobolo made the decision to move forward using a safety method. And that wasn't communicated either effectively, correctly, or wrong. I don't know. Or something happened that the communication wasn't made to the city. And I'm of the opinion that, if we are still having a project that is done, safely, I would just like a little bit more information to see all of that communication before we impose either a $3,000 fee or whatever the board chooses to do. That's all.
I think that's reasonable, myself.
But I would like to just interject, colleagues, and I appreciate and respect the concern. A couple of quick notes. One, I just want to ask Mr. Gutierrez, on this project, like all projects, was Bubalo and others required to attend a pre-bid conference?
Yes, they were.
And at that bid conference, were the expectations and regulations around communication or subcontracting, et cetera, articulated?
They typically are on this and all other projects, yes.
And is this, again, to use Ms. Colosa's language, is this Bubalo's first rodeo with the city?
No, it is not.
And have they presumptively been involved in other projects where pre-bid conferences were required at which the same rules and expectations were regulated or were articulated?
Yes.
So, humbly, colleagues and everyone involved, what I would suggest is that we have confused this. I am not an engineer. I'm certainly not in a position to adjudicate around the safety or the necessity of that piece of the project. My understanding, and Mr. Gutierrez and anyone, including Mr. Jordan, who wants to disabuse me of this, please do. My understanding is, among other things, and this has nothing to do with Bubalo, to be clear, Mr. Sorum and the Bubalo team, because I assume no nefarious intent, but the purpose, and this extends from similar requirements at the federal level, state level, and the local level. The purpose here is to inoculate against, to protect against, in the spirit of our desire to attract and incent subcontractors, small businesses, or businesses of color, women-owned businesses, etc., to incent their participation, to push contractors to include them in our maybe-weeby process, in our BIP process, to protect against a scenario in which a contractor submits a bid, and in the spirit of accommodating our expectations around participation levels, to put in a number, and then in the execution to change that, and in the end, that number has not been met, and they and neither our BIP goals have been met, and that contractor or smaller business has not secured the benefits of the work. That is the point of this regulation, is it not, Mr. Gutierrez? And please feel free to tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh, yes, and that's correct. And part of the report, as I mentioned, is that they listed the sub to meet the board's policy of MSM, which was 10%. They were able to pledge 11.5%. It's not to say that failure to use this sub led them to not meet the MSM, but their overall achieved ended up being just 7.03%. So I think that kind of supports what the point you're trying to make.
So then, just to be crystal clear, at least from me, I mean, what we're talking about here is not whether or not that work needed to happen or if that was a good decision. It may have been a great decision. The point here is we have very specific expectations and regulations that are articulated in process. Sophisticated proposers know that process. We have changes in contracts all the time, and they notify BCA. Regardless of what notes were taken in the field, regardless of what conversations were taken in the field, respectfully, colleagues, and again, respectfully, Bubalo, you're good partners. So, this is not about, frankly, y'all. It's about protecting the process that is necessary and important to protecting our goals around business inclusion, around ensuring subcontractor participation, and around ensuring the integrity of the process. And but for explicit, direct, and crystal clear, codified communication, it's very difficult for us to do that. And if we do not enforce on that, then we send, I would argue, an inappropriate message. So
I think that your point is well taken, Mr. President, in terms of the facts of the matter of the policy. But also, I will underscore, when you come to the board, then you do have to come in with this supplemental evidence, because you know that this is getting ready to come up. So then when you come here without that supplemental evidence, then it kicks the ball down the court. So I definitely understand the integrity that we want to uphold in terms of the policy, which is really what it ends up being. At the same time, we want it to be open, as we should be, to hearing what people have to say, and we have heard what they have to say. And we have witnessed that there has not been any definite evidence of the alleged discussion. We don't doubt that it took place, but in addition to it taking place, you have to come here with something else to further substantiate it, so at least we can put a dot on that I. So having said that, Mr. President, I clearly hear you, and I clearly see you.
thank you, Dr. Davis. And I think your point is extremely well taken, and same with Commissioner Villegas, is around wanting additional documentation. But you need to come ready with that if you're opposing. And again, Mr. Sorum and company, this is frankly, it's very little about y'all. You're good partners. We work with you all the time, I presume. It's really about what we need to do to protect our goals. So I will motion to move this forward, but we'll do a roll call because I know that there's concern, and I want to make sure that I'm prepared to move this forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Closa. Let's take a roll call, Dr. Campos, on this one because I want to make sure everyone's. And Commissioner Villegas, do you want to? I mean, I'm sorry, I sort of.
It's okay. It's okay. That's why we are called to the board to make these decisions. I hear you. I really appreciate your line of questioning right now. There's nothing to say that a commissioner can also change their mind. I appreciate just the narrow focus. I don't say that with any disregard, but I just know that, I like context. I like a lot of information. Sometimes these decisions are difficult. It's $3,000. I realize it's not a lot of money, but I realize where we are going with this. So I am going to vote in favor of, giving this penalty to Bubalo and Company.
Great. We will now take roll for this item. We have a motion by President Good, seconded by Commissioner Caloza and Garcia. We will start with President Good.
Aye.
Vice President Garcia.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Caloza.
Aye.
And Commissioner Villegas.
Yes.
We will take that as an aye. President Good, that motion carries unanimous.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Storm and Bubalo Incorporated Inc., or Company and Inc. Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez and BCA, and thank you, colleagues, for that really robust conversation. With that, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. With that, colleagues, we're going to continue item 6, the Public Works Trust Fund update. Simply put, budget hearings started 9 minutes ago, and I have to be there. Dr. Campos has to be there. Vice President Garcia. What I would like to do is, barring objections, we'll continue item 6. Dr. Campos, let's make that next Wednesday.
Great. We will continue that item to Wednesday, May 12th.
Thank you, sir. And then let's go ahead and hear from one of the board's favorites, Roosevelt Bagby, with a status of all personnel services. Wait. Oh, yeah, we need to do this. That's Roosevelt's here for the BCA part. Okay, so item 7 is status of all personal services contracts plus policy number 793. Dr.
Mr. President, we do have a series of presenters today for the Bureau of Contract Administration and also the Bureau of Street Lighting. There is nothing to report on those from those bureaus, so no representative will be presenting. We do have members from the Bureau of Engineering team. We will start with Mr. Ryan Tolles.
Hey, Ryan.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
We got you.
Okay, great. So I'm Ryan Tolles, Bureau of Engineering, Wastewater Conveyance Construction Division. I'm here to present the construction order report for the period of January 1st, 2021 to March 31st of 2021. The report that you have includes a list of all the construction services contracts that are managed by the Bureau, provides the work order, the title of the project, and the issuance date for all of the construction orders that were issued under $150,000. These contracts, which we refer to as construction services contracts, authorize BOE and staff to use on-call contractors, one of which the prior company, Bubalo, is on, and they provide emergency repair services throughout the city for a term of 5 years. So we're reporting on the construction orders issued under $150,000. So I'll just quickly go through that report. It starts with the municipal facilities projects. There was $0 in the quarter for that contract. We have the emergency geotechnical structural contract, $0 for that contract in the quarter. The Clean Water Services contract, which is also our storm drain repairs, we had $75,000 issued in the quarter, a total of 3 projects. We also had the Emergency Demolition Services contract, $0 in the quarter. Emergency Construction Repair Services at the wastewater treatment plants, $0. And finally, the Emergency Sewer Repair contract, $3.6 million, a total of 127 projects within the quarter. And just to give you some perspective, when you compare the emergency sewer repairs to the last quarter, it's a decrease of about 6.6%. Last quarter, it was about 3.8 million for a total of 138 projects. So just a slight decrease between the last quarter and this quarter. So that's it for the construction orders, unless there's any questions. And then Long Huang will be presenting the change orders for the Bureau.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions, folks? Okay, Mr. Wong, hi.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Long Huang. I'm with Construction Management Division for the Bureau of Engineering. I'm here to report on the change orders that we've issued in the period of 2021. For our municipal facility, we issued a $1.1 million in total program, $376,000. For our EED,
Mr. Wong,
179,000. 6th Street was 5,000, and wastewater was a net of minus $150,000. So of all the programs, the total was $1,541,000. That's it for my report. If you have any other questions, please let me know.
What was that final number again, Mr. Wong?
$1,541,000.
That's cumulative change orders on BOE projects over the last quarter.
Yes, for all 31 projects.
Colleagues, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong.
Last presenter is Mr. Ray Sisson from the Bureau of Engineering.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Also, hi, Mr. Sisson.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Ray Sisson from Bureau of Engineering. I'm here to report for the Personal Services Contract reporting period January 1 to March 31 of 2021, as well as reporting for the Board Policy 793. For this reporting period, we have 149 active contracts. We've issued 11,614,498 invoiced amount for all our contracts. We awarded 4 task order for this period, and we currently have 43 negative deviation for our contract. Invoiced for this issued for each program for the MBE, WBE. We have about 30 contracts. Amount invoice for this period is $1,278,478. 21.3% went to MBE sub-consultants. 6.4% went to WBE, and 34.4% to OBE. For our business inclusion program, we have 86 contracts. Amount invoiced for this period is $8,429,247. 16.9% went to MBE, 9.9% to WBE, 27.4% to SBE, 18.3% to EBE, and 0.8% to DBE, and 9.1% to OBE. For our DBE program, a total of 33 contracts. Invoiced amount for this period is $1,906,774, of which 20% went to our DBE sub-consultants, 15.6% to OBE. As part of the board policy report for 793, we issued awarded tasks for MBE outreach program under 150,000. We have one task order and one task order for business inclusion program. No tasks were awarded under the BBE under 150,000. For tasks awarded over 150,000, we do not have any tasks awarded for MBE, WBE outreach program. We have one for business inclusion program and one for DBE program. For this reporting period, we did not experience or receive any issues or complaints from our consultants with regards to task order solicitation posted on Bavin. We do not have any contracts executed for this period. No contracts expiring for this reporting period. We do not have any contracts expiring for next quarter. No contracts amended, executed, or any contracts approved by the board for this reporting period. If you have any question, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Cezanne. Must compliment you on your screen. You've mastered the juxtaposition of background and person. You look fabulous. Any questions, folks? Okay, thank you very much for the report. Does that cover BOE?
Yes, that does, Mr. President. We will go with Bureau of Sanitation, Ms. Nancy Lanton, sorry.
Okay, and I'll request a report back from Mr. Cezanne on Zoom backgrounds. So thank you. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Before I begin, I'm going to introduce Alexa Esparza. I apologize, Dr. Campos. I wasn't able to give you Alexa's name, but Alexa handles our on-call consultants contracts for our automation programs. So she will give that brief update.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I originally had good morning, but I guess it's afternoon now. My name is Alexa Esparza, and I am presenting the summary of the on-call support contract for the Information and Control Systems Division of the LA Sanitation and Environment. The on-call support contracts for the sanitation, automation, and technology projects with 9 pre-qualified consultants expired on April 8th of 2021. A 1-year extension is being exercised to continue the project. An amendment to extend the contracts for 5 years is also being prepared. Since the date the contracts were executed in April of 2016, a total of 17 task orders have been issued. 11 task orders have been awarded. The total task orders awarded is amounts to $17,574,975. The total expenditures to date is $13,274,894. In response to any task order solicitations, the proposals must include subcontractor utilization as outlined in the on-call contract, with the set anticipated participation levels as follows: 10% MBE, 2% WBE, 1% SBE, 1% EBE, and 1% DVBE. The proposers are reminded that their proposals must include the Schedule A with their proposal as outlined in the contract. Our achieved percentages to date for MBE is 94.5%. For WBE is 153.0%. SBE is 37.3%. EBE is 20%. DVBE, there hasn't been any achieved, and OBE is 48.1%. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Esparza.
You're welcome.
Nancy, you want to continue, or Ms. Lanson, you want to continue?
Sure. And my report includes the numbers that Alexa gave you and all of our personal services contracts report for LA Sanitation, and this is for the quarter ending March 31st, 2021. I did want to mention these numbers may be a little bit more than our previous quarter, and I mentioned in last quarter's report, we weren't able to enter all of our invoices in time for December 30th, 2021, but now we have caught up with the invoice entry as of March 31st, 2021. So total amount billed since last quarter is $73.1 million on our personal services contracts. Of those, $21.1 million is from the old MBE WBE outreach program, and $52 million are under the new business inclusion program. The achieved numbers on those are 4.1% under the MBE WBE outreach, which is $861,000. And our business inclusion program is 5.9% for MBE, 1.3% for WBE, SBE is 3.1%, EBE is 5.4%, DVBE is 0.2%, and OBE 9.2%, of a total of $9,141,000 and 17.6% of those contracts. For our summary of contracts that are expiring within the next 9 months, under our solid waste biosolids contracts, we do have 3 contracts that are expiring, and this is within the next 9 months. One contract will not be renewed. We do have a contract with Browning Ferris Industries, or BFI, for our municipal solid waste contracts. Those contracts are expiring June 30th, 2021, and LA San will be executing new contracts with selected proposers from that RFP process. We have 2 additional contracts that will be renewed, and these are for contracts for processing and reuse of green material. One contract with USA Waste of California is expiring May 8th, and we are executing a month-to-month extension on that contract and then preparing an amendment to extend that contract as well. Our other green waste contract is with Rainbow Environmental Services. That's expiring September 20th, 2021, and we're also in negotiations to extend that contract as well. In our stormwater management program, we have S. Groner Associates. That contract is expiring June 30th, 2021. We are exercising a 1-year renewal option, and that's our stormwater public outreach program contract. For our clean water program, we have 11 contracts that will be expiring within the next 9 months. 9 of those contracts are the contracts that Alexa just described to you for our automation programs. Those are expired in April, and that will be forthcoming to you with a renewal. Another contract expiring June 30th, 2021 is with Southern California Coastal Water Research. The board did approve an amendment to this contract back in November, and we're waiting for council approval on that contract. And the last contract that will not be renewed is with, 2 contracts. One contract will not be renewed with ABB Enterprise Software. This is a sole source contract with ABB. It's expiring June 30th, 2021, but we are executing a new sole source contract with them. And to address the deviation concerns under the business inclusion program in our report, we have 23 contracts that do have some deviation concerns. A majority of them are from our on-call list of consultants. We do anticipate that the subcontractors will be utilized during the later phases of these projects. Therefore, those participation levels will increase, and we've seen that from the previous quarter. A couple of other tosses, and it's noted in the report, have closed. And for those closed tosses, we've noted in there that either LA San had performed a portion of the work, or sometimes the contractor overestimated some of the services that were required. And now that cost containment has been waived, we do anticipate that some of those halted services will resume, and participation levels will continue to increase. And then just a quick update on our policy 793 for our on-call list of 24 consultants for our planning and technical support services. These are our on-call contracts that are expiring in July 2024. We have awarded $191.6 million for those on-call contracts. $137.4 has been paid out. For tosses that are less than $150,000, we have issued $4.9 million, and payment to date is $3.8. And for tosses that are over $150,000. We've we've issued notice to proceed of $186 million, and payment to date is $133.6. The numbers for our business inclusion program, our MBE numbers are 21.7%, WBE is 7.7%, SBE is 22.4%, EBE is 13.8%, DVBE is 0.7%, and OBE is 17.8%. And this concludes my quarterly report. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lanton. Any questions, colleagues? All right. So I know that we have Streets LA is our next, correct? Thank you very much, Ms. Lanton. Thank you, Ms. Esparza.
That is correct, Mr. President. The last bureau is the Bureau of Street Services. We will kick it off with Victor Cortez, and then I believe there's two other presenters after Victor. And if there's three, Victor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll kick it off with you first.
Just two. Melinda Chow, just Victor on the construction contracts and Melinda Chow on the personal services contracts.
And if I may, to allow Melinda to go first, she has a meeting starting soon. So if she could start, Melinda.
Thank you, Victor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Melinda, hi.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you. So I'm here to report on the Bureau of Street Services status of personal services contracts and policy number 793. For the right now, we have 19 active contracts, of which 3 are for production and delivery of our asphalt, 5 are for disposal contracts, and 4 are for landscaped median island maintenance. Of these 19 contracts, we do have 4 that are expiring within the next 90 days. And they are shaded in yellow in the report that was attached. 2 of those are for our asphalt contracts, which is for All American Asphalt and Vulcan Materials. Those are expiring in June. We also have a graffiti control system that provides tunnel cleaning maintenance on our streets. That one is expiring in June 30th. The 4th one is with Frugal USA Land, and they are the one that provides pavement condition surveys for our streets, and that expires on May 24th. We also have 4 contracts that are in various stages of execution. We have released RFPs and recommending award to 3 contractors for 3 contracts. We are currently working on the board reports for those, and that includes the heavy haul equipment transportation, freeway off-ramp closure services, as well as Venice Canal's maintenance. We will also have another one that we're working on, which is a sole source agreement with Los Angeles Trade Tech College that is basically a partnership with the college to provide the street maintenance technology program that actually offers college credit or a certificated program. And on the TOS side, we do have 7 active TOSs. All 7 are actually piggybacks or using other departments or bureau's on-call lists. And 4 of those actually had activity during the last quarter in which there were contract changes. The first one is Parsons Environmental Infrastructure, and they actually went to board in February of 21, and that was approved to increase the budget from $148,000 to $423,000, and that was pending cost containment review by the mayor's office, and we got that approved by the mayor in March. There's there was another one called, that was a recommended award to Kimley Horn and Associates for the design support services for our Broadway Manchester Active Transportation Equity Project. That was actually approved by the board and also in February. And again, these were all pending cost containment review, but because cost containment approval is no longer necessary as of April 22nd, we are actually ready to issue notice to proceed on that one. The other two is for Somas and Hatch Associates, and those were actually approved by board quite a while ago during the fiscal year. But again, they were pending cost containment review, and again, now that cost containment is no longer required, we will be issuing notice to proceed on those shortly. And there is another TOS that is also pending award. That one is for the feasibility study for our 2028 Olympic Legacy Street Improvements Plan project. The TOS was issued in January and proposals were received in February. They were doing the evaluations, and they will be going to board with the selection in the next 1 to 2 months. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Chow. Any questions, colleagues? All right, thank you.
I wanted to ask her about the collaboration with the Trade Tech program. It's an annual program that we do. And is it done once a year, or what are the intervals at which it's done?
So typically, the Bureau actually has been issuing authority for expenditure for the program, and so we would go to board for the program each year. So right now, to make it more efficient, we're thinking of issuing a sole source agreement with them for potentially a contract term of 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, President Davis. Thank you, Melinda. Any other questions? All right. Victor, are you up next? Nasser?
Yes.
Yeah.
Victor will be presenting. I'm just sitting for the bureau rep. Thank you.
Where's
Good
your
afternoon.
Where's
Good
your pop-
afternoon.
Thank you. Where's your popcorn? That's All right, Victor, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Good
right.
afternoon, Mr. President. You know what?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Victor Cortez, and I'll be reporting on construction change orders issued in the first quarter of this calendar year, 2021. We have 2 construction projects currently. The Los Angeles River Headwater Bike Path rebid project issued 1 change order this quarter in the amount of $8,995, which amounts to 0.15% of the total contract amount. And the second project, San Fernando Road Bike Path Phase 3 project, issued one change order in the amount of $307,200, which amounts to 1.67% of the total contract amount. This received board approval in February 9th. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Nasser, and thank you, Ms. Chow. Any questions for Mr. Cortez? All right. Any follow-up questions for any of the bureaus on all this? Although we lost most of them. All right. Thank you, Streets LA.
Thank you.
And yeah, Nasser, make sure and have your popcorn next time. It's good to see all of you.
With Ramadan, it's Ramadan, our fast month.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Campos, having continued to item 6, that clears the decks, I believe, right?
That is correct, yes.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. For 6 items, it only took us 3.5 hours, but but it was a good, productive meeting. Thank you all for digging in deep on a number of really salient issues, and thank you, Vice President Garcia, for that inspiring presentation at the beginning with Spark. That was very cool. Unless anybody's got any parting shots, that'll close the meeting, and we are officially adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.